he has indicated that they may pull out of NATO now. But whether he pulls out or not, he may seek, more pressure on North Atlantic Treaty Organization to play a bigger role in opening the Strait of Hormuz in this conflict. The UK has announced that 35 countries will come together. They will meet and they will decide how best to move forward on this. But this is something that President Trump is very keen on. That's point one. Point two, America believes, by and large, they've achieved a number of their military aims.
Correct.
If not completely, then to an extent they have. Whether it's decimating Iranian missile launch facilities, their manufacture capabilities, the nuke facilities. So he may give some kind of an assessment of where they are and what they intend to do moving forward.
Gaurav, stay on with me, because it's right, like you're mentioning, it's anybody's guess really what the US president will say, but there are some possibilities and scenarios. And of course, we've spoken to all our senior experts and colleagues who have helped us understand what precisely could be on agenda. Stay on with me, Gaurav and Geeta, because what could Donald Trump announce in just a short while? There are about three possibilities. Possibility number one, end to the US military action in Iran. That's because he himself had maintained that perhaps in the next 2 to 3 weeks, or a certain timeline, about approximately of a month, they would decide to pull back because they believe they're almost done with their objectives. What could be another possibility? Successful deal with Iran, whether it's with regard to their new capabilities or the enriched uranium that needs to be now given to the atomic agency. However, that could be on agenda if there is a deal, which, remember, Iran has completely dismissed. And third possibility could be America pulling out of NATO. That also has come as a certain mention consistently, but will that be mentioned right away? Gaurav, can I ask you on that? Because my concern also is this is happening when there are troops from America being taken on the ground in the region. Do you think that pulling out of NATO right away could be a part of agenda, or do you think it would be more to ensure Americans are not miffed with Donald Trump and his government for going to this war? Do you think this is an address to the nation or address to the world?
It's an address to the nation and to the world on 30 days plus of this war and what America has been able to achieve so far and the road ahead. This is America's prestige at stake. This
Correct.
is America's credibility as the world's biggest superpower that's at stake. Because when you look at the situation right now, 33 days plus into this conflict, this is day 34 of this conflict in India and day 33 in the United States of America. When you look at day 33 or 34 of this conflict, is America on top of the escalation ladder? Clearly not. And this would be hugely embarrassing for the American president should he announce either a pause or a ceasefire. And more than American president's words, you need to look at the actions on ground. And all indications are that America is building up the kind of weapons, the kind of systems that are being sent to the Central Command area of responsibility. USS George W. Bush, the 3rd Aircraft Carrier Strike Group, moving into that region. Of course, after Gerald R. Ford is being pulled out for repairs. But also keep in mind, you have 2 Marine Expeditionary Units, one already stationed there, the second on its way there. Just yesterday, British media and the world media, in fact, they were reporting how nearly 2 squadrons of A-10 Warthogs and there are close air support aircraft. They've already landed in UK. They're again on their way to the area of responsibility of the Central Command. All of this indicates that the move is there, whether coercive tactics, pressure tactics, gunboat diplomacy, whatever you may want to call it.
Yes.
The effort is to coerce Iran, and that will not happen if Iran thinks America is going to pull out.
This is what has caught my attention, because he's consistently said that they want to perhaps exit in the next few weeks, then adding that there is certain deployment, there is a pressure tactic being used that refers or suggests a certain escalation in the region. So is it exit or escalation? One really doesn't know what is on Donald Trump's mind. Gaurav, please stay on with me, Geeta, you too, because I want the world to understand why this is not just addressed to the nation. While it is significantly that, speaking to Americans on the ground, there will be a message to the world, because the world has been impacted by this war. There has been a disruption in global economy so far, because about 4 million more people across the Gulf region and across the world could be pushed into a certain poverty. There is going to be a direct impact. It's already been a month of war. We are told that at least to the Arab nations, there's been a cost of $194 billion that has faced an impact. Gasoline has crossed $4 a gallon in America, first time since August 2022. That has ruffled a lot of feathers among the public. Since February, the end cost of gasoline has jumped about 35% in America. Higher energy prices have pushed up inflation in European nations as well. At least 21 European Union countries have faced inflation, and that's one of the reasons that UK, for example, maintains it is not their war, they're not going to be a part of it. European Union central bankers may raise interest rates if the prices accelerate. India also is facing certain inflation. We've seen there has been, whether panic buying, hoarding, or simply a shortage for LPG. The restaurants have faced the crisis as much. The food inflation is likely to hit people, especially in low-income countries, in the next few days if the war continues. Then what about inter-country relationship vis-a-vis fertilizers? Fertilizer prices are set to rise further. There is shortage of helium, sulfur, that could hit growth in many countries as well. So there's been a direct impact of it. Geeta, I want to take that question to you. Do you think that all of this is happening and then he's moving troops to the region, that the public sentiment in America may not really be with Trump at this juncture, and that is what he wants to assuage any concern, fear, and therefore speaking via this address?
Well, there is one reason why he's addressing for sure, and that is to assuage all the fears and concerns and anxiety of people in America after the fuel prices touched $4 a gallon. And that's their threshold. If it goes beyond that, then you will see panic, very panic hit United States of America. So yes, he is addressing a few things. One is, like Gaurav listed out, the timeline Iran, the achievements of the US administration, and he will also talk about the transatlantic treaty, which is NATO. But remember, it's in 2023 that Secretary of State, then Senator Marco Rubio, had co-authored a bill that strengthened the Congress in any decision to exit the North Atlantic Treaty Organization or transatlantic treaties. And in 2024, he had reiterated that it is essential that the U.S. Congress is taken into confidence for a decision such as getting out of NATO. And today, he's fronting the idea of getting out of NATO. And President Trump, in all probability, could talk about that also. It'll either be an announcement or an ultimatum to NATO. So,
will there be an announcement? Will there be, yes, a certain strategy that Donald Trump will refer to? We have some big news coming in. Let's take a look at that big breaking about US and Iran possibly negotiating a ceasefire deal. USA and Iran are negotiating a ceasefire deal in exchange for the Hormuz reopening. This is an Axios report that I'm quoting from. Both are in talks about a possible deal that would trade a ceasefire in exchange for Tehran reopening the Strait of Hormuz, which has, of course, been the big bone of contention. The report is mentioning Donald Trump spoke about a possible ceasefire with the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman over a phone call, and that could lead to a clear Strait of Hormuz. Remember, this is when Donald Trump had said that we'll blast Iran into oblivion, back to the Stone Ages, obliterate their Khamenei leadership and more. Our senior managing editor, Gaurav Sawant, is joining us for the latest on that. Gaurav, stay on with me because I have more news coming in, constant updates from the region. 400 ships are waiting to cross the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's Mehr news agency is reporting that about 400 cargo ships and oil tankers are waiting for Iran's permission to cross the Strait of Hormuz. The ships are stopped behind the strait around the Iranian lands of Larak, Hormuz and Kesht. Mehr's correspondent is also sending out these reports. So, of course, the local media also in the region suggesting that there are about 400 ships waiting to cross the Strait of Hormuz. Remember, this backlog could actually hit the supply chain in other countries. Gaurav, how do you look at Iran's position here? Do you think the USA underestimated how Iran could use, whether you call it blackmail, pressure tactic, power, or realizing that Iran has a stronger hand on the Strait of Hormuz and will basically push it for a deal?
The United States, its central command, their main task is to look at Iran and what Iran can do. And when you look at military war games, you look at the enemy or the adversary's power, and the Strait of Hormuz is, if I may, and no pun intended, Iran's trump card. Everyone knows that. It can choke the Strait of Hormuz the day it chooses to do so. And the entire American Marine Corps, their naval exercises, they've all been about how you can break that chokehold. And it isn't just the Strait of Hormuz. The other trump card is the Bab al Mandab, which Yemen, the Houthi rebels control, again a proxy of Iran. And that would again adversely impact world trade through the Suez Canal, and not just trade that would impact Asian countries and some European countries. So Iran controls two of the world's most crucial choke points. And that's a fact of history known from all times to come. It hasn't just happened in Donald Trump's regime. If they did not war game this, or the president did not appreciate this enough, well, that is for the US president to talk about. But the mobilization that is taking place and the aircraft and the ships that are now being brought in, they are all there for one task, is to open that chokehold. But then there is a second chokehold. That second aircraft, the second Marine Expeditionary Unit, is that already are they trying to position it around the Bab al Mandab and preempt that? I do not think America would want to pull out of this conflict at this stage, because should they choose to do that, Iran would emerge as a superpower that has defeated the United States of America, that
But
had
Gaurav,
control
why do
of
you say that? I want you to please elaborate on that. If you can elaborate on why do you believe, if Donald Trump, let's say assuming, announces that we are going to pull back from this war right now, why and how does that make Iran look like a superpower? Because Donald Trump will most likely say we have struck a massive, great ceasefire deal.
Well, he may want to sell it, but the world will not be willing to buy it. And especially the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, they will see an emboldened Iran that will then try to dominate and will successfully dominate the Strait of Hormuz. And every other country, whether it's Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, they will all have to pay money to Iran for their ships to cross through, because Iran would be the dominating power, Iran to the north and Oman to the south. But clearly Iran with its military might, that's point one. Point two, Iran would have defeated a superpower like the United States of America. And look at just the economics of it. Iran has 4% of world oil trade, which before the war started, there are reports that say it's crossing 20% now. If it's going to control 20%, look at the amount of money that will come into Iran, and how long will it take for Iran to rebuild not its cities but its military capabilities first. This time, if after 33 days of bombing America pulled out, next time it will make sure it has the nuclear bomb that no country would dare target it, and then it wouldn't be just the most dominating country in the region. Its influence and power will expand way beyond, given that it controls 20% plus of global oil trade.
I want you also to come in on this. On one side, there is a reference to a ceasefire deal. On another, we have this backlog of 400 ships at least waiting for permission. What is the impact of such a backlog? Because this will only increase in the days to come, the impact on the rest of the world. And do you think there is a pressure building on Donald Trump vis-a-vis other countries to be able to reach a deal, to decide what to do with this war?
Well, the pressure, I think, is domestic more than international, because that pressure has been there for a while. When we talk about international pressure, it would be West Asia that's feeling the brunt of it. And like you rightly said, you can see it visibly with 400 ships and vessels stuck in the Strait of Hormuz waiting to pass. And the Strait of Hormuz is not just about oil and essentials when it comes to fertilizers and so on and so forth that leave the Strait of Hormuz. Look at all the basic necessities and supplies that the Gulf nations get through the Strait of Hormuz. So for them, they're counting days in a crisis-like situation when it comes to basic necessities and supplies. And for the world, it is going to be a massive crisis when it comes to energy security, because there are only a medium week or more where the dollar can hold under 150 or 180. If it breaches 200, you will see a massive economic crisis that the world would be grappling with and reeling under. So there has to be an out from this one. This is something that Donald Trump also now acknowledges and realizes is not sustainable. But Pooja, in all this, what I see is that they want to snatch a victory out of this mess, and Iran is not allowing America the window. Every time Trump or the US administration makes a statement on ceasefire and that Iran has proposed one, Iran immediately rejects those claims. So not giving Trump a victory is going to keep Trump in the game, in the war. And that's where I see a catch-22 like situation. I suppose if he comes out and declares that Iran has asked for a ceasefire and we're going ahead with one, it might be a unilateral announcement. There might be rejections later, but most of the world will not question it. But again, we are second guessing what is going to happen in about 7 minutes from now.
In just a short while, 7 minutes, as Geeta is suggesting, we will know what is up Donald Trump's mind. What does he want to say and add? This address to the nation is going to be crucial because it may have its consequence on how the world also is going to look at this war and the impact of it. Please stay on with me. Now, why Donald Trump's statements in itself have been very confusing. There's been a mixed messaging in the past few days ever since the war started a month ago. Now, what are those mixed signals? We're going to talk about it one by one because that could reflect on what Donald Trump is about to say. There have been a sign that he's going to pull back, says the war could end within 2 weeks. Then pushing Iran to sign a deal. There are rising oil prices that are considered at this juncture because that's escalating, and that is not just hitting the markets but people on the ground. Then there are signs of an escalation. Third warship being sent to the Middle East. Then there is deployment of more troops that are happening, considering the Pentagon warning of bigger strikes. So on one side, adding that we're going to pull back, the war is going to come to an end. Why would you spend all that money and resources then to move the troops? Gaurav, a quick question to you before we go to our big breaking and then Donald Trump's address as well, set to begin in a short while. The fact is that Iranian regime are no victims. They've been accused of massive human rights violations over these years, and there have been tensions in the region in itself for a very long time. And Israel, Iran and USA's tensions we've seen for decades now. What do you think here could be the consequence of this war? In the sense, do you think Trump may actually end up making Iran look like a victim, even if the Khamenei regime has been not, at least internally?
So the Khamenei regime remains in power. When President Trump says that the regime has changed, it clearly hasn't. Elements of the regime that believe in the same ideology remain in power. When he said the new president of the regime, well, if he means Mujtaba Khamenei, all reports seem to indicate that Mujtaba Khamenei, the new Ayatollah, is even a bigger hardliner than his father. Point two, IRGC and Basij, their power centers may be targeted, but they still remain effectively, command and control remains intact. President Masoud Pezeshkian, he has been president of Iran since 2024 July. So there is no new president in Iran. There is some confusion in what President Trump wants to portray. He may seek to portray something, but the regime remains powerful. And former US NSA, in fact, NSA to Donald Trump in his first tenure, he says a wounded regime is even more dangerous because a wounded regime that survives will come back with a vengeance, build up in such a way, perhaps rush through with its nuclear program if they can, to ensure that they can never be targeted again. So what has the United States done so far? They've taken out 13,000 targets inside Iran over the past 33 days. All of that still hasn't been able to remove the regime from being in power. There are some reports of executions of Israeli spies taking place, or alleged Israeli spies, even till yesterday and day before.
We've seen how that has worked in Afghanistan, for example. Taliban 2.0 turned out to be more extremist than what US managed to, at that point, said were obliterated. Geeta, what's your view on how the region is going to look like? We've seen there have been strikes in Lebanon, for example. UAE, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, considered to be the safest cities, face those missile strikes as well. Do you think this region is going to face more tensions, whether or not Donald Trump decides to pull back? Or there could be, perhaps in the next few days, if the war comes to an end, of course all of these are ifs and buts, if the war comes to an end, there could be a resurgence of perhaps more talks, discussions, or this is a never return point right now?
Well, as of now, what I'm looking at is the statements that President Trump made at the Easter lunch, and he's already said that he's not sure people in the U.S. have the patience for Iran war to continue. He said that he said that they would prefer to take Iran oil, but people in the country sort of say, just win, you're winning so big, just win, come home, and I'm okay with that too. So I suppose this is the tone and tenor of the address that is to follow very soon. This was a speech just a few hours ago at the Easter lunch in the US. So it's actually a very significant statement that he's making ahead of his big address on Iran war. In all probability, Americans, given the popularity rating, which he says he's still the most popular leader in the country, but other polls and ratings seem to suggest otherwise, and contrary to what he's claiming. But I suppose there's an acknowledgement within the Trump circles and President Trump himself that popularity is decreasing because of the war and prices going up. Inflation is really high, and if the oil prices cross $4 a gallon, then he's in a lot of trouble. So he is saying that Americans do not have the patience, and he's okay with that, even if that means that he has to exit the war theater, because he's already won. He's made a lot of there have been a lot of achievements of the Trump administration in this war, and he's going to enumerate those achievements. I suppose today is the day, and I've been saying this all along, Pooja, that there will be a moment when Trump will define his victory, declare it, and exit. Whether it's temporary, whether if it's a halt for a longer period, and then they'll go back into Iran, is a different matter altogether. But this time around, they did not game the war the way they should have, and maybe those are lessons learned for the U.S. administration. We do not really know what's going to happen, but I suppose, given what he said at the Easter lunch, it looks like a retreat, even if it's a tactical one at that.
A lot will depend not just on words, but the tone and tenor of Donald Trump, because that will decide where does USA want to go ahead with this war, and the world will possibly get dragged in it too. Please stay on with me. I have a big news coming in. Donald Trump saying he's not sure people in the USA have the patience for Iran war to continue. Is that one of the big suggestions that have come in, a hint, or what is likely to be mentioned in that remark? As a foreign affairs editor also has been mentioning in his private remarks at an Easter lunch at the White House, Donald Trump, the US president, seemed to reflect domestic pressure that he wants to wrap up the war. He adds that USA could very easily take Iran's oil, but said it is unfortunate there did not seem to be patience among the American people for such an effort. They want to see it end. Donald Trump said he would prefer to take Iran's oil, but people in the country sort of say, just win. You're winning so big, just win, come home. And I'm okay with that too. The video was posted online and has been uploaded. It's a closed press event, but was also made private. The White House did not respond to requests for comment from the agencies, the news agencies, and on why the video was taken down. A quick word first on that, as Geeta, you were talking about it, and then I'll take that to Gaurav. But let's listen in first to what Donald Trump had said, which has become such a controversy now.
No nuclear weapon, but we also won regime change. He said, I spoke with the Washington Post, another beauty that's going down the tubes. But the Washington Post said, what do you mean you have regime change? You didn't have. Evening. Let me begin by congratulating the team at NASA and our brave astronauts on the successful launch of Artemis 2. It was quite something. It will be traveling further than any manned rocket has ever flown and will very substantially pass the moon, go around it, and come back home from a distance that has never been done before. It's amazing. They are on the way, and God bless them. These are brave people. We want to God bless those 4 unbelievable astronauts. As we speak this evening, it's been just 1 month since the United States military began Operation Epic Fury, targeting the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, Iran. In these past 4 weeks, our armed forces have delivered swift, decisive, overwhelming victories on the battlefield, victories like few people have ever seen before. Tonight, Iran's Navy is gone. Their Air Force is in ruins. Their leaders, most of them terrorist regime they led, are now dead. Their command and control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is being decimated as we speak. Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed, and their weapons factories and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left. Never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks. Our enemies are losing in America, as it has been for 5 years under my presidency, is winning, and now winning bigger than ever before. Before discussing this current situation, I also want to thank our troops for the masterful job they did in taking the country of Venezuela in a matter of minutes. That hit was quick, lethal, violent, and respected by everyone all over the world. After rebuilding our military during my first term, we have by far the strongest military anywhere in the world. And now we're working along with Venezuela and are, in a true sense, joint venture partners. We're getting along incredibly well in the production and sale of massive amounts of oil and gas, the second largest reserves on Earth after the United States of America. We're now totally independent of the Middle East, and yet we are there to help. We don't have to be there. We don't need their oil. We don't need anything they have, but we're there to help our allies. Tonight, I want to provide an update on the tremendous progress our warriors have made in Iran and discuss why Operation Epic Fury is necessary for the safety of America and the security of the free world. From the very first day I announced my campaign for president in 2015, I have vowed that I would never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. This fanatical regime has been chanting death to America, death to Israel for 47 years. Their proxies were behind the murder of 241 Americans in the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut, the slaughter of hundreds of our service members with roadside bombs. They were involved in the attack on the USS Cole, and they carried out the countless other heinous acts, including the just horrible, bloody atrocities of October 7th in Israel, something that most people have never seen anything like it. This murderous regime also recently killed 45,000 of their own people who were protesting in Iran. 45,000 dead. For these terrorists to have nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat. The most violent and thuggish regime on earth would be free to carry out their campaigns of terror, coercion, conquest, and mass murder from behind a nuclear shield. I will never let that happen, and neither should any of our past presidents. This situation has been going on for 47 years and should have been handled long before I arrived in office. I did many things during my 2 terms in office to stop the quest for nuclear weapons by Iran first, and perhaps most importantly, I killed General Qasem Soleimani in my first term. He was an evil genius, brilliant person, a horrible human being, however, the father of the roadside bomb, and he lived just horrible what he did. Iran would have been perhaps in far better, stronger position. Had he lived, we would have had probably a different conversation tonight. But you know what? We'd still be winning and winning big. And then, very importantly, I terminated Barack Hussein Obama's Iran nuclear deal, a disaster. Obama gave them $1.7 billion in cash, green cash, took it out of banks from Virginia, D.C., and Maryland, all the cash they had. He flew it by airplanes in an attempt to buy their respect and loyalty, but it didn't work. They laughed at our president and went on with their mission to have a nuclear bomb. His Iran deal would have led to a colossal arsenal of massive nuclear weapons for Iran, and they would have had them years ago, and they would have used them. It would have been a different world. There would have been no Middle East and no Israel right now, in my opinion, the opinion of a lot of great experts, had I not terminated that terrible deal. And I was so honored to do it. I was so proud to do it. It was so bad right from the beginning. Essentially, I did what no other president was willing to do. They made mistakes, and I am correcting them. My first preference was always the path of diplomacy, yet the regime continued their relentless quest for nuclear weapons and rejected every attempt at an agreement. For this reason, in June, I ordered a strike on Iran's key nuclear facilities, an Operation Midnight Hammer. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Those beautiful B-2 bombers performed magnificently. We totally obliterated those nuclear sites. The regime then sought to rebuild their nuclear program at a totally different location, making clear they had no intention of abandoning their pursuit of nuclear weapons. They were also rapidly building a vast stockpile of conventional ballistic missiles and would soon have had missiles that could reach the American homeland, Europe, and virtually any other place on Earth. Iran's strategy was so obvious. They wanted to produce as many missiles as possible, and they did, with the longest range possible, and they had some weapons that nobody believed they had. We just learned that out. We took them out. We took them all out so that no one would really dare stop them. And their race for a nuclear bomb, a nuclear weapon like nobody's ever seen before. They were right at the doorstep. For years, everyone has said that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, but in the end, those are just words if you're not willing to take action when the time comes. As I stated in my announcement of Operation Epic Fury, our objectives are very simple and clear. We are systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America or project power outside of their borders. That means eliminating Iran's Navy, which is now absolutely destroyed, hurting their Air Force and their missile program at levels never seen before, and annihilating their defense industrial base. We've done all of it. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Their missiles are just about used up or beaten. Taken together, these actions will cripple Iran military, crush their ability to support terrorist proxies, and deny them the ability to build a nuclear bomb. Our armed forces have been extraordinary. There's never been anything like it militarily. Everyone is talking about it, and tonight I'm pleased to say that these core strategic objectives are nearing completion. As we celebrate this progress, we think especially of the 13 American warriors who have laid down their lives in this fight to prevent our children from ever having to face a nuclear Iran. Twice this past month, I have traveled to Dover Air Force Base, and it's been something. I wanted to be with those heroes as they return to American soil, and I was with them and their families, their parents, their wives, the husbands. We salute them, and now we must honor them by completing the mission for which they gave their lives. And every single one of the people, their loved ones said, "Please, sir, please finish the job." Every one of them. And we are going to finish the job, and we're going to finish it very fast. We're getting very close. I want to thank our allies in the Middle East, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. They've been great, and we will not let them get hurt or fail in any way, shape, or form. Many Americans have been concerned to see the recent rise in gasoline prices here at home. This short-term increase has been entirely the result of the Iranian regime launching deranged terror attacks against commercial oil tankers in neighboring countries that have nothing to do with the conflict. This is yet more proof that Iran can never be trusted with nuclear weapons. They will use them, and they will use them quickly. It would lead to decades of extortion, economic pain, and instability worse than we can ever imagine. The United States has never been better prepared economically to confront this threat. You all know that. We built the strongest economy in history. We're going through it right now, the strongest in history. In 1 year, we've taken a dead and crippled country. I hate to say that, but we were a dead and crippled country after the last administration and made it the hottest country anywhere in the world by far, with no inflation, record-setting investments coming into the United States, over $18 trillion, and the highest market ever, with 53 all-time record highs in just 1 year. It all positioned us to get rid of a cancer that has long simmered. It's known as the nuclear Iran, and they didn't know what was coming. They've never imagined it. Remember, because of our drill baby drill program, America has plenty of gas. We have so much gas. Under my leadership, we are #1 producer of oil and gas on the planet, without even discussing the millions of barrels that we're getting from Venezuela. Because of the Trump administration's policies, we produce more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. Think of that, Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. And that number will soon be substantially higher than that. There's no country like us anywhere in the world, and we're in great shape for the future. The United States imports almost no oil through the Hormuz Strait and won't be taking any in the future. We don't need it. We haven't needed it, and we don't need it. We've beaten and completely decimated Iran. They are decimated, both militarily and economically and in every other way. And the countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They must cherish it. They must grab it and cherish it. They can do it easily. We will be helpful, but they should take the lead in protecting the oil that they so desperately depend on. So to those countries that can't get fuel, many of which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, we had to do it ourselves. I have a suggestion. #1, buy oil from the United States of America. We have plenty. We have so much. And #2, build up some delayed courage. Should have done it before. Should have done it with us, as we asked. Go to the Strait and just take it. Protect it. Use it for yourselves. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done, so it should be easy. And in any event, when this conflict is over, the Strait will open up naturally. It'll just open up naturally. They're going to want to be able to sell oil because that's all they have to try and rebuild. It will resume the flowing, and the gas prices will rapidly come back down. Stock prices will rapidly go back up. They haven't come down very much, frankly. They came down a little bit, but they've had some very good days over the last couple of days. We've done actually much better than I thought, but we had to take that little journey to Iran to get rid of this horrible threat. With our historic tax cuts, where people are just now talking about receiving larger refunds than they ever thought possible, they are getting so much more money than they thought. That's from the great big beautiful bill. Our economy is strong and improving by the day, and it will soon be roaring back like never before. It will top the levels that it was a month ago. I've made clear from the beginning of Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. Yet if during this period of time no deal is made, we have our eyes on key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. We have not hit their oil, even though that's the easiest target of all, because it would not give them even a small chance of survival or rebuilding. But we could hit it, and it would be gone, and there's not a thing they could do about it. They have no anti-aircraft equipment. Their radar is 100% annihilated. We are unstoppable as a military force. The nuclear sites that we obliterated with the B-2 bombers have been hit so hard that it would take months to get near the nuclear dust, and we have it under intense satellite surveillance and control. If we see them make a move, even a move for it, we'll hit them with missiles very hard again. We have all the cards, they have none. It's very important that we keep this conflict in perspective. American involvement in World War I lasted 1 year, 7 months, and 5 days. World War II lasted for 3 years, 8 months, and 25 days. The Korean War lasted for 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days. The Vietnam War lasted for 19 years, 5 months, and 29 days. Iraq went on for 8 years, 8 months, and 28 days. We are in this military operation, so powerful, so brilliant, against one of the most powerful countries for 32 days. And the country has been eviscerated and essentially is really no longer a threat. They were the bully of the Middle East, but they're the bully no longer. This is a true investment in your children and your grandchildren's future. The whole world is watching, and they can't leave the power, strength, and brilliance. They just can't believe what they're seeing. They leave it to your imagination, but they can't believe what they're seeing, the brilliance of the United States military. Tonight, every American can look forward to a day when we are finally free from the wickedness of Iranian aggression and the specter of nuclear blackmail. Because of the actions we have taken, we are on the cusp of ending Iran's sinister threat to America and the world. And I'll tell you, the world is watching. And when we do, when it's all over, the United States will be safer, stronger, more prosperous, and greater than it has ever been before. May God bless the men and women of the United States Armed Forces, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much, and good night.
Crucial address to the nation, and as you could hear, for the world as much, but basically a messaging for his people. In the next 2 weeks, the USA is going to hit Iran extremely hard, but then they will finish the job as soon as possible and the war will come to an end. So there were clear timelines that he had put out, and basically speaking to Americans on the ground to assuage any concern, any issues that they may have, and also to convince them that this was a much needed operation. We're going to soon put out snippets of what Donald Trump had said. And viewer, what do you make of what exactly is the speech? Is it going to transform the public sentiment on the ground? And brief, but very specific, but also we could understand what he was trying to say. Not an immediate announcement, whether there's going to be an exit, however, saying it will happen soon. Senior Managing Editor Gaurav Sawant, Foreign Affairs Editor Geeta Mohan continue to be with us. Gaurav, let's begin with you. Is it on the lines that you were expecting it to be? Because eventually he adds that we are going to hit them hard in the next 2 weeks, and then we will finish the job.
Oh, absolutely. You see, military operations are science. They're not emotion. And he said they are on cusp of victory. They are going to achieve that aim. You cannot let the threat remain. A wounded regime would be even more dangerous. So he's giving details of what they've been able to achieve so far and what they intend to achieve over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And this is still within the parameter that was set when they started these operations. President Trump initially did say that this operation will take between 4 to 6 weeks. It's been 4 weeks. It could take another 2, maybe more. But then Iran cannot remain a nuclear threat to the region. On the Strait of Hormuz, he's made it very clear. America does not need that oil. The countries that need it, they need to come forward. But when America is through with its operation, the Strait of Hormuz will open automatically because Iran will not have that chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz. That is his appreciation, his reading of that situation. But then he's also listing out, he's putting this war in perspective. How long did American intervention last in First World War, Second World War, Korean War, Vietnam War, Iraq operations, Afghanistan? Of course, he didn't list Afghanistan, but all these operations from 1 year to 9 years. And right now, he says it's just 32 days and most of the objectives have been met. He called Iran with a nuclear weapon, should they have that? That's a cancer for the world, and that is what they're dealing with. And he's trying to ensure that future generations of Americans are safer. So he's giving his vision, his war plan, and they are not pulling out. That's very clear.
Here's what we are going to do. I'll play out some of the main significant snippets that our team have been able to put together right away, minutes into that speech, and then we'll try and take an understanding of what is the perspective from this address to the nation by Donald Trump. Let's begin first. Now, remember when he was speaking, there was a constant focus on not only what they've achieved vis-a-vis the obliterating, the manner in which they've been able to be done with the regime, so to say, but also attacked his previous governments, the Obama administration. So let's listen in first to that, and then we'll go across to Geeta.
I did many things during my 2 terms in office to stop the quest for nuclear weapons by Iran first. And perhaps most importantly, I killed General Qasem Soleimani in my first term. He was an evil genius, brilliant person, a horrible human being, however, the father of the roadside bomb. And he lived just horrible what he did. Iran would have been perhaps in far better, stronger position. Had he lived, we would have had probably a different conversation tonight. But you know what? We'd still be winning and winning big. And then very importantly, I terminated Barack Hussein Obama's Iran nuclear deal, a disaster. Obama gave them $1.7 billion in cash, green cash. Took it out of banks from Virginia, D.C., and Maryland, all the cash they had. He flew it by airplanes in an attempt to buy their respect and loyalty, but it didn't work. They laughed at our president and went on with their mission to have a nuclear bomb. His Iran deal would have led to a colossal arsenal of massive nuclear weapons for Iran, and they would have had them years ago, and they would have used them. It would have been a different world. There would have been no Middle East and no Israel right now, in my opinion, the opinion of a lot of great experts. Had I not terminated that terrible deal, and I was so honored to do it. I was so proud to do it. It was so bad right from the beginning. Essentially, I did what no other president was willing to do. They made mistakes, and I am correcting them.
I'm also joined in this telecast by Reem Ibrahim. He's a journalist from Washington, D.C. Reem, thank you for speaking to India today. Do you think this justification that he has given, why did the administration, the government go to war against Iran, work on the ground? Why do you think he was so specific about how Iran has always been against the USA, wants to annihilate and consistently maintains death to Israel, death to America, and then, of course, the references thereon?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Pooja, for having me on. And I mean, you're absolutely right. Part of the interesting aspects of what Trump said today is all of those objectives. Now, part of the problem is that the objectives for the war in Iran have been contradictory. So we've got the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, saying that there are some aspects of this where they want to destroy the Navy, they want to destroy Iran's airspace. Now, originally, the 4 objectives included the nuclear disarmament of Iran, so the fact that they would have their nuclear capabilities completely destroyed. And in addition to that, part of it was the fact that they would be able to have regime change. Now, one of the interesting things about what Trump has just said is that regime change was never one of their objectives. Of course, that is contradictory to what they initially said. Part of the problem, I think, is that there has just been such a different aspect of what those particular people within the administration have said. They've combined different objectives. They've said that these things are exactly what they want, and this is what they want to achieve in Iran. Now, thinking about what Trump has just said, he is saying that the rest of NATO, all of these NATO allies that have not come to support Trump and have not come to support the Americans in Iran, have a lot to answer for. So what he said today is effectively exactly what he said on Truth Social, exactly the same stuff. He was saying that if you want to go and get oil, if the United Kingdom, if France, if they want to have oil, if they are running out of jet fuel, specifically is what he said, they must go to the Strait of Hormuz and go and get it themselves, or buy it from America. Now, he's right to say that America is now the largest exporter of oil in the world. It is, very, very different time to what it has been in previous wars. In previous wars, if we look back to 2003 with the Iraq War, the Americans did not have as much energy security as they do today. However, oil is priced globally. What happens in America, what happens in Iran, what happens in the Middle East, what happens in anywhere in the world when it comes to war, if there is a shortage of oil, that affects everyone. It affects people in India, it affects people in Bangladesh who have specifically been really hurt by this. And of course, it affects the rest of Europe.
Stay on with me, Reem, because I want this reference of what Donald Trump says, why he believes that most of the objectives have been achieved, and therefore in the next 2 weeks, they just want to be finishing the job as a promise to the American people. Let's listen into that, and then we'll go across to our colleagues.
Tonight, I want to provide an update on the tremendous progress our warriors have made in Iran and discuss why Operation Epic Fury is necessary for the safety of America and the security of the free world. From the very first day I announced my campaign for president in 2015, I have vowed that I would never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. This fanatical regime has been chanting death to America, death to Israel for 47 years. Their proxies were behind the murder of 241 Americans in the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut, the slaughter of hundreds of our service members with roadside bombs. They were involved in the attack on the USS Cole, and they carried out the countless other heinous acts, including the just horrible, bloody atrocities of October 7th in Israel, something that most people have never seen anything like it. This murderous regime also recently killed 45,000 of their own people who were protesting in Iran. 45,000 dead. For these terrorists to have nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat. The most violent and thuggish regime on earth would be free to carry out their campaigns of terror, coercion, conquest, and mass murder from behind a nuclear shield. I will never let that happen, and neither should any of our past presidents. This situation has been going on for 47 years and should have been handled long before I arrived in office.
I want to bring in Geeta Mohan now. Geeta, the words have been strong and scathing, as always, but is the tone, if I'm correct, softer than usual of Donald Trump? What did you make of this address?
Well, I did think that he was not being bombastic. He was being rather realistic in his assessment on what has happened on the ground. But he did what he had to do, Pooja, come out and say that these are America's achievements. This is what America has done so far. And he started not just in what America's achievements have been in this war. He started from his first term. He opened with Qasem Soleimani and the fact that they took him out, which was basically back then a huge achievement for America.
Correct.
To have taken out the one man who created this entire structure, and today he not just enumerated, but he's also made a significant statement that it's not an exit right now, that there are 2 or 3 more weeks to go. And Pooja, like I said, it's because no matter how many times he says ceasefire and tries to define and declare a victory, unless and until Iran stops rejecting those claims, this war will continue. So, yes, he's in it for another 2 to 3 weeks is what he said. That's the big statement. But then it's continuum. There is nothing that he has said in a way that he's not said almost on a daily basis, barring the weekend that he's not in Washington, D.C. So for now, what I'm looking at is status quo. They're continuing to see what they can do and how they can actually declare a victory or get ahead of Iran in the escalation ladder. And in that, yes, the next 2 to 3 weeks are going to look for very, very bad for the global economy, but particularly so for the Arab world, West Asia, because any attack by America will be inviting retaliation on West Asian soil, not American soil.
Stay on with me, Geeta, because also it is important to understand why certain mentions were made. And for that, joining me in this telecast is Chris Osborne, President, Center for Military Modernization and Associate National Defense University from the United States of America. Chris, there were 2 points that I noted from this address to the nation by Donald Trump. One, about the achievements vis-a-vis military, for example, whether it was Qasem Soleimani or how they have been able to obliterate as much as possible according to their objectives for the leadership. Then a thank you message to the American Armed Forces, to the families basically, where these boys are now heading to the war, even boots on the ground. Why do you think these mentions were made, and what was the general idea that Donald Trump went with this address?
Well, hello, thanks for having me. I think your assessment is extremely accurate. And one of the key words that really struck me was when he said command and control. Because the question remains is what, from a purely military point of view, might need to happen for the objectives to be accomplished. Sure, the conventional army, the ballistic missile arsenal, the command and control systems have been decimated, have been destroyed. That's by design quite significant, because if the remaining leadership of the IRGC, whatever hardliners are left, if they don't have a command and control and there's no centralized ability for them to coordinate and connect and communicate with one another, then that makes it very, very difficult to launch any kind of attack of any kind. Now, the questions that remain, the uncertainties, I would say, relate to the Strait of Hormuz and what needs to happen militarily. In order to fully accomplish the sought-after objectives, there are a lot of unknowns still. Will there need to be a naval presence in an amphibious operation to clear the strait? Of course, the hope would be not. The hope would be to paradoxically threaten that, to not have to do it. But I think your point about some of the wording and some of the messages to the troops are extremely important because of the concern that Americans have about lives. And of course, Americans remember Iraq and Afghanistan, and no one wants anything protracted, but this has not been long at all.
Interesting. Stay on with me, Chris, because what I noted was not just achievements that he's making, but clearly a message to Americans of why this war was so necessary. Perhaps it's assessing the public sentiment on the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay on with me, because I have a big news coming in about Donald Trump's sharp jibe at his own allies, the NATO and more, over the Strait of Hormuz. Let's take a look at that. Donald Trump had said, "You're on your own vis-a-vis the Strait of Hormuz." The USA president adding, "We do not need the Hormuz Strait," which was once such a crucial bone of contention as an issue. Donald Trump now says Hormuz betrayers must buy oil from the United States of America. Nations are using the strait, and then they must take care of it. Let's listen in to what Donald Trump had said, which is currently the biggest flashpoint in the region.
So to those countries that can't get fuel, many of which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, we had to do it ourselves. I have a suggestion. Number one, buy oil from the United States of America. We have plenty. We have so much. And number two, build up some delayed courage. Should have done it before. Should have done it with us, as we asked. Go to the strait and just take it, protect it, use it for yourselves. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done, so it should be easy. And in any event, when this conflict is over, the strait will open up naturally. It'll just open up naturally. They're going to want to be able to sell oil because that's all they have to try and rebuild. It will resume the flowing, and the gas prices will rapidly come back down. Stock prices will rapidly go back up. They haven't come down very much, frankly. They came down a little bit, but they've had some very good days over the last couple of days.
Let's go to Washington, D.C. for the latest. India Today's Rohit Sharma joins me, and he's been tracking all these mixed messaging that has come in from the American president. Rohit, what do you think is likely the ground reaction from this message? This was clearly a message to the American people. What are the perhaps 2 to 3 key takeaways you believe from this address that possibly could allay concerns of fear by Donald Trump onto the ground?
Good morning, Pujan, and good to see you back on India Today.
Thank you, Rohit.
So I think the first things first. I think it was a message for domestic audience. I think it definitely was kind of an operational update. People expected this to be. There were talks during the day that this could be possibly he could be announcing that the war is going to get ended in next 2 to 3 weeks. He would probably talk about an update on negotiations that have been going on. He actually talked about it during the day that, and even joked about it that JD Vance is leading it, and if the talks go through, he'll take full credit for it. If it does not, he's going to blame JD Vance for it. So I think a lot of people expected that President Trump would probably give more than what he was able to do in this address. He was also there were also talks about that he was going to talk about how NATO has not been beneficial with the US, especially coming to this war, which is what you were talking about earlier, the update on Strait of Hormuz and how people should have courage to take the oil on their own now. So I think those were the things that were being discussed during the day. I think this was a messaging for the domestic audience. This was a messaging to make sure that people who are losing interest in the war or his polls have been going down. I think it was a messaging for them. And trying to make sure that people watch this. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. I think a presidential address is mostly watched by a lot of Americans, and he wanted to give this an update. Importantly enough, also
of this war on other issues, the Brent crude rising from $99.5 and shooting up about $6. This is while Trump was speaking. And that's how the impact is on the markets, on ground, even essential commodities and more, as and when people realize that at least for the next 2 to 3 weeks, there could be the war that could continue as well. All right, I'm now joined by Patrick Entheros, former American envoy to Qatar. I bring him in for the reason. Patrick, tell us about how, when Donald Trump mentioned a certain thank you to his allies. I thank Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and of course Israel for their support in this war, because we know these were also countries that did face an impact of the strikes, even though not directly involved. What do you make of the statement from Donald Trump thanking the allies, even though he took down NATO?
I think this is Donald Trump's way of saying, I'm going to keep bombing just for the record for the next few weeks. In the meantime, whatever happens at the Straits of Hormuz or whatever happens to world oil prices is not my problem. It is the problem of other countries as, for example, India, Southeast Asia, China, and Europe. It's a way of sort of saying, I wash my hands. I'm going to keep the Iranians from having nuclear weapons, and I'm going to bomb them every now and then, or maybe more frequently. But this is not my problem, nor is the security of the Gulf states my problem. That's their problem. They're going to have to work that out, their own defense. And it's his way of distancing himself, having to do anything more conclusive. The one thing he made clear, or he didn't make clear, but the one thing that came out clearly is that there will be no American ground troops going ashore any place in and around Iran, which is the one issue that would have been extremely damaging to him.
Stay on with me. Very interesting that you say it's America distancing vis-a-vis the war, and at least the manner in which he thanked the allies. I want to bring in our senior managing editor, Gaurav Sawant, on this. Gaurav, I would like you to take also a question to the former American envoy to Qatar, Patrick.
So, Ambassador, your reading of President Trump indicating that there is no off-ramp, at least not for now. They're on a cusp of victory. And when you're on cusp of victory, you do not leave battle. Point one. Point two, he's saying, yes, there are oil shocks for now, but that's a small price to pay when you look at what happens in the end. Strait will open on its own when Iran loses, and that's the time oil prices will come down and stock prices will go up. Do you see that happen?
No. I would be very surprised if the Iranians allowed the Strait of Hormuz to reopen to normal traffic. That is the one tool that they still wield. And Mr. Trump was being a little bit disingenuous when he said, we have the oil, we're the biggest oil and gas producer in the world, therefore what happens outside does not concern us. We all know that the world oil market is a single market across the entire world, and whether it's Brent crude or the Texas benchmarks, the fact is that oil prices are going up all over the world. But he is arguing at this moment that this is of no importance, that it will come down quickly. He has one problem, which is a domestic problem. One of your announcers said earlier, this is very much aimed at the domestic American audience. There are two messages here. No American ground troops will go ashore. And secondly, don't worry, we have the oil markets under control. And if you're a little bit patient, everything will go back to normal because we will have beaten the Iranians into not blocking anything out of anything out of Hormuz.
Yes, and we don't see how long will that take, because Pooja, the impression he's giving is that they're on cusp of victory, and we clearly do not know if that's actually the case, because he believes that a lot of Iranian Navy, their Air Force, their missile launch capabilities, they've been damaged. Their missile manufacturing capabilities have been damaged. But there is nothing to indicate that Iran is unable to launch. They've launched on Israel just late last night. They've targeted GCC countries. And they've targeted them successfully. They've targeted American interests in the region. So how long will this war last? 2 weeks, longer than 2 weeks. Yesterday, they said the new leadership, the new regime in Iran wants to have a deal. President Masoud Pezeshkian and the leadership, they came out. Syed Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister, he came out and said, no, we are not seeking a ceasefire. And their weapons are still talking. And this would indicate that the president is building a rather rosy picture. Ground realities are a little different, despite 13,000 targets being taken down in 33 days and counting.
That is what is very amusing at this point. It seems like there's a lot of mixed messaging that's coming in. I have another question to Patrick Theroz, because you've served in Qatar. I want to just understand, and Geeta, you can also come in case you have a question for him. And my question is, where do you see the region going here on? We've already seen how UAE and Bahrain also had been facing its share of strikes. The region in itself has got engulfed in this conflict, directly or indirectly. Even if this war ends in the next few days, do you think we've reached a point of no return? How will these neighbor nations really interact with each other?
Well, I believe that the Gulf states themselves will try to restore some sense of normality to where they were before. This will be not easy. It's done. Some of the Gulf states, for example, Qatar, for example, has been forced to shut down virtually its entire natural gas industry because of the strikes. There have been a lot of strikes against the UAE, somewhat less against some of the other countries. I suspect that the Iranians will continue to do their best to keep Hormuz closed, except to favored countries and favored. This is very difficult to understand. I'm getting the impression that the Iranians have already begun to extract tolls on ships going through the Gulf. Some friends of mine have told me that they're Greek ship owners and that they have gotten through making special arrangements, whatever those special arrangements might be. So this is Donald Trump saying, I don't need to worry about the Straits of Hormuz. This is a European and an Asian problem. And if they want more gas or oil, they can buy it from the United States. And I wash my hands of this, and I'll continue to bomb them. I suspect because he expects that the Israelis will continue to bomb, the Israelis having a need to have the war continue for their own domestic political purposes. So this is aimed at the American public. I'm not going to send your sons and daughters ashore to conduct a ground war. We can do this at a distance. We will not suffer very much, and the Iranians will continue to be bombed, and I don't have to worry about the future very much.
And if I send the troops ashore, then thank you for your service to the families as well, a messaging that had gone from Donald Trump. I request all our panelists to please stay on and to, in fact, show that we have expert panels right now. Remember, they know their field, why Donald Trump has said what he has, and therefore, in the next few hours, as we'll continue to bring all the latest of what Donald Trump has said, the impact of it vis-a-vis the perspectives. Let's listen in now. One, to Operation Epic Fury's attack targeting the nuke facilities, because that's been one flashpoint against Iran via the USA. Here's what Donald Trump said on that, NATO, and more.
As we speak this evening, it's been just 1 month since the United States military began Operation Epic Fury, targeting the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, Iran. In these past 4 weeks, our armed forces have delivered swift, decisive, overwhelming victories on the battlefield. Victories like few people have ever seen before. Tonight, Iran's Navy is gone. Their Air Force is in ruins. Their leaders, most of them terrorist regime they led, are now dead. Their command and control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is being decimated as we speak. Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed, and their weapons, factories, and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left. Never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks.
We've had some very bad allies in NATO. I hope you're all watching that, Scott, because we had some asks, and you know, we spend trillions of dollars on NATO, and when we need them, which we never do, we didn't need them here either. To be honest, I was really asking because I wanted to see what they do. We didn't need them. We blasted the hell out of them, out of Iran. And the last thing I needed was NATO stepping in our way, because they're a paper tiger. But so we didn't need them, but I asked anyway. And they probably think I'm the worst salesman ever. I was the worst. They would have much preferred Franklin Graham or somebody that's a good salesman than Trump, because I'd say, we'd love to have some help. Oh, President, I'm not sure that we can. Oh, that's okay. You don't want to do it? Well, if we. Oh, that's okay. You don't have to do it. So he gets off, probably says, man, that was easier than I thought. Then I call up France, Macron, whose wife treats him extremely badly. And he's still recovering from the right to the jaw. And I say, Emmanuel, we'd love to have some help in the Gulf, even though we're setting records and knocking out bad people and knocking out ballistic missiles. We'd love to have some help. If you could you please send ships immediately? No. We cannot do that, Donald. We can do that after the war is won. They said, no, I don't need after the war is won, Emmanuel. Many of them said, we'll be there after the war is completed. And so I learned about NATO. NATO won't be there if we ever have the big one. You know what I mean by the big one. We ever have the big one, hopefully we won't. Relationships very good with the big one, better than with NATO.
I want to bring in Reem Ibrahim now, journalist from Washington. Reem, a quick question here. He gave a timeline of the wars and then also added, look how America was a crippled country in the Obama administration and how I turned it around. We got the investments, we got the money, we are in a much greater shape. That was not exactly about the war, and yet he chose to make such statements. So do you think that is going to perhaps to convince the masses on the ground that he is taking the right decisions?
Well, it's further evidence that this speech was absolutely for the American audience, for the domestic audience. It's for those in the MAGA base that did not want this war. Now, we've got to remember that, according to polling, the majority of Americans do not support this war. So I think that a lot of this speech and a lot of these discussions are really centered around that particular point. The MAGA base are supportive of Trump's actions, but we've also got to remember that Trump was the candidate in the presidential elections that said, if you want peace, if you are sick and tired of being dragged into foreign conflicts, vote for me. And he again started a war, exactly as every other American president has in the history of this country. They have started wars in the Middle East. Now, as I just mentioned, the sort of fact that this speech is focused on the domestic audience, the price of oil matters, and the idea that what happens in the Middle East doesn't affect American consumers is just simply untrue. The average price of a gallon of petrol, of gas, is now $4 or just over $4. So it's fluctuating severely. Part of the reason why it's fluctuating is because Trump keeps sort of shifting his mind and saying exactly when the war is going to end. Is it going to be a few weeks? Is it going to be much longer? What's interesting about the segment that you just played of Trump's speech, specifically about NATO and about France and about whether or not these allies are supposed allies, we've got to remember NATO is under no obligation to help the Americans in a war when they are attacked, when they're attacking, sorry. NATO is a defensive alliance. It is there to support allies if they are attacked, if they are on the defensive. We must also remember, for example, when Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands in 1982, the British did not get any help from NATO because NATO does not support absolutely every single one. This is absolutely not the case in which the Americans ought to have support from NATO allies. So I think what's interesting about what Trump just said is that the Americans, asked for support from NATO allies just to see what they would do. I mean, that's utterly bizarre. They clearly need support. The Americans are incapable of opening up the Strait of Hormuz without support, and that's why they asked for it. Trump did not just ask for help because he wanted to see what would happen. They needed that support. And we must also be very clear about this, talking about the economy of the US and how things have developed. Europeans cannot afford to enter war. European countries are, for the most part, in really quite dire economic states. I'm originally from the United Kingdom, and the economy is not growing. It's growing just about above 0.1% on average. Things are pretty awful, and they don't spend very much on defense. Even if NATO allies wanted to help the Americans in this war, they probably couldn't have afforded to do so.
All right, so they appear to have their own conditions here. Reem, I understand you need to go, so I'll let you go for now. Thank you very much for your perspective. So remember that this has been a very interesting address. It is making it clear that the war could be coming to an end in the next 2 weeks, but those next 14 days will also be very crucial. How hard would Iran be hit by the USA? The impact of that, not only on the markets, but for domestic audience in the USA and for the rest of the world as much. Meanwhile, moments after Donald Trump's speech, Asian markets have been hit. I want to get that big breaking that's now coming in. Asian markets are deep in red after Donald Trump's speech. Tokyo, Seoul, Hong Kong markets are deep in red already. This is reflective of how the situation is turning. They were all in green earlier, but after the speech concluded, they've gone deep in the red. So we'll try and get a perspective and understanding of what that means. Our guest panelists continue to be with us. But this is to help you understand that what the USA president says isn't just about America. It may be an address to the nation, but it has an impact on Asia, on rest of the world as much. We've seen it vis-a-vis whether it's the supply chain, whether it's the strikes, the impact, the LPG fuel supply disruption, the impact especially on low-income countries, and even if they are not directly involved in the war. So that's the latest coming in, that in the green markets in Asia have turned deep red because of the Donald Trump speech, and also, of course, what it means that at least for the next 2 weeks, there is going to be an impact. Expect that there is going to be a repercussion of that as much. I want to bring in Daniel Block now. He's a senior editor of Foreign Affairs magazine. Daniel, Asian markets are hit. We understand that even within the USA, there's been a certain price hike, inflation that's being reported vis-a-vis fuel. And as we speak, all right, I have more news coming in. Gold falls over 2% trading at $4,650 an ounce. Silver slipping over 3% trading at $72.48 an ounce. We'll get our Business Today colleagues to help explain that. Over to you, Daniel, just to get a perspective about this statement. I think the words were, as Donald Trump are known to use, that we are going to hit them hard, we are going to push them, we have pushed them to stone ages. But look at the impact of what Donald Trump says on rest of the world. What is your assessment and takeaway from this speech, especially about the impact of it on rest of the world?
Well, I think what we see happening with the markets is fairly straightforward and fairly rational. In this case, at least, a lot of people were hoping that Trump was going to use his remarks as an opportunity to spell out how the war would come to an end. There had been certain signals that he was going to say the war is winding down. And that's not what happened. He maintained a consistent tone with the things he's been saying before, which is that the war will end at some amorphous point a few weeks in the future, but that for now, the United States is going to continue to attack and continue to hit Iran. And that's obviously bad for the global economy. I mean, if you have a chokehold on commerce through the Strait of Hormuz, you're going to have what we've seen, increased energy prices, higher levels of inflation. You could have some trouble with food prices in various parts of the world, particularly in parts of Asia. And so I think that's why you're seeing stocks around the world, not just in the United States, have negative reactions. They're worried about slower economic growth. They're worried about higher prices. And they understand that the longer this conflict goes on, the greater the economic and potential, again, food, I really want to talk about food, consequences could be for so much of the world.
Stay on with me, Daniel, because there's a constant updates that we're receiving, whether it's about the markets, it's about the mood on the ground in the USA. And remember, this address to the nation by Donald Trump was, even though for the people in the USA, it must have been watched clearly across the world by the leadership of different nations, by people on the ground. Everyone wants to know if they also want to brace or will have to brace for the consequence of this war that they may not be involved in, but the impact of it as much. I want to now play some of the excerpts in case you're joining us right now about what Donald Trump said just about a short while ago at 6:30 a.m. Indian Standard Time. Here are at least the few takeaways that he has said. The war is coming to an end, but the next 2 weeks will be very crucial.
These core strategic objectives are nearing completion. As we celebrate this progress, we think especially of the 13 American warriors who have laid down their lives in this fight to prevent our children from ever having to face a nuclear Iran. My first preference was always the path of diplomacy, yet the regime continued their relentless quest for nuclear weapons and rejected every attempt at an agreement. For this reason, in June, I ordered a strike on Iran's key nuclear facilities, an Operation Midnight Hammer. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Those beautiful B-2 bombers performed magnificently. We totally obliterated those nuclear sites. The regime then sought to rebuild their nuclear program at a totally different location, making clear they had no intention of abandoning their pursuit of nuclear weapons. They were also rapidly building a vast stockpile of conventional ballistic missiles and would soon have had missiles that could reach the American homeland, Europe, and virtually any other place on Earth. Iran's strategy was so obvious. They wanted to produce as many missiles as possible, and they did, with the longest range possible, and they had some weapons that nobody believed they had. We just learned that out. We took them out. We took them all out so that no one would really dare stop them. And their race for a nuclear bomb, a nuclear weapon like nobody's ever seen before. They were right at the doorstep. For years, everyone has said that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, but in the end, those are just words if you're not willing to take action when the time comes. As I stated in my announcement of Operation Epic Fury, our objectives are very simple and clear. We are systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America or project power outside of their borders. That means eliminating Iran's Navy, which is now absolutely destroyed, hurting their Air Force and their missile program at levels never seen before, and annihilating their defense industrial base. We've done all of it. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Their missiles are just about used up or beaten. Taken together, these actions will cripple Iran military, crush their ability to support terrorist proxies, and deny them the ability to build a nuclear bomb. Our armed forces have been extraordinary. There's never been anything like it militarily. Everyone is talking about it, and tonight I'm pleased to say that these core strategic objectives are nearing completion. As we celebrate this progress, we think especially of the 13 American warriors who have laid down their lives in this fight to prevent our children from ever having to face a nuclear Iran. Twice this past month, I have traveled to Dover Air Force Base, and it's been something. I wanted to be with those heroes as they return to American soil, and I was with them and their families, their parents, their wives, their husbands. We salute them, and now we must honor them by completing the mission for which they gave their lives. And every single one of the people, their loved ones said, "Please, sir, please finish the job." Every one of them.
So we at India Today are ensuring that you get every perspective analyzed and understood vis-a-vis Donald Trump, because there has been a lot of mixed messaging in the past few days. I just want to put on our screens panelists who continue to be with us since morning, since this address. We have ensured to have, whether from the military, from economic life and otherwise as well, of course, political perspective, to help you understand what should be the key takeaway from Donald Trump address. I want to just bring in Chris Osborne now. He's the President Center for Military Modernization and Associate National Defense University. He's joining us from the USA. Since 2003, Chris, this has been the largest build-up, so to say, at least aimed at, of the troop movement coming to this region. 3,500 troops already have been moved. I believe they are Marines, if I'm correct. Now he says next 2 weeks, the job's done. So what do I make of it? Does that mean there will be more troop movement, or is it going to come to a halt? How do you think that is being seen on the ground among the veterans or the armed forces families?
Well, I think you put your finger on the most key question at the moment. With the amphibious group, with the Marines, there's several thousand Marines that are on the USS Tripoli. There's another 1,000 or so, which are the airborne units that are paratroopers as well. And I think the context here that to some extent might be getting lost is this issue of short-term versus long-term threat. And it relates to what the president said about regime change. How substantial is that? How significant is that? Militarily, in the short term, of course, Iran's conventional capabilities can be wiped out, but there are lingering questions. Number one, would they be even more serious threat in the future after building up if hardliners remain in charge? That's really what there doesn't seem to be an answer to. And on a military point of view, there's a long-term threat. He also mentioned ranges of missiles. Think tanks were analyzing Iran's arsenal, and they said there was a missile called the Khorramsar that could go 3,000 kilometers, but they wasn't sure if it was active or yet. And that was, sure enough, something was fired at Diego Garcia. So there may be longer range missiles. That's the question. How much more is left? Is Iran holding back their arsenal? How much more of it is left underground? And then long term, what can be done about the drone threat? There have been a lot of innovations in the area of counter drone technology, and the US Navy is very experienced at this, given Iran's terror proxy groups in the Red Sea. They have drones that can launch from ships and use proximity fuses to defuse or knock out small drone swarms. They also have Aegis radar and fighter jets, which can use over-the-horizon radar sensors to see an incoming ballistic missile, knock it out of the sky. So there's a real concern in terms of what the military equation might look like, both short-term and long-term. If there is, in terms of the context, a move toward a more moderate leadership in Iran, that would be very, very different in terms of the long-term threat. Because in terms of purely eliminating 100% a military threat, that's very, very difficult to do without a significant regime change of some kind because of the seriousness of the drone threat, the seriousness of the ballistic missile arsenal. Even if the large-scale conventional capability is gone, those missiles have INS guidance systems, inertial navigation, they're GPS guided, they can be extremely threatening. And there's a reason why the Pentagon is going full steam ahead on drone defense. Drone swarms are very difficult to handle. They can overwhelm, from a vector point of view, a bunch of nodes at one point, make shift defenses, even layered defenses,
Chris,
very
do you believe, a counter question here, that USA at some point, or even Israel, underestimated or did not realize the arsenal that Iran has and has the capability to use in retaliation?
I think that's a really important point. There's a lot of talk about how quickly things are happening in Ukraine and how the U.S. military is learning about the drone fight. There's also a lot of discussion about exactly what you said, that for years and years and years, the Iranian regime has been preparing for something like this. So I think the size and the intent of the arsenal has been understood, but I think the ranges of some of the weapons, the precision and the targeting of some of these weapons, and most importantly, it was known they could produce those drones at scale.
Correct.
But the drone swarm threat with precision or AI-enabled targeting, that's extremely serious threat. That may have been more than what was thought. I think that's a fair question.
Stay on with me, Chris. I'm joined by a senior journalist, Sandeep Unnithan, who has been tracking these conflicts and wars for decades now. I found it interesting, Sandeep, that Donald Trump mentioned the World War I timeline, World War II, the Iraq War, then even Vietnam War, and then, of course, the recent Venezuela takedown, and, of course, the ongoing conflict. How should one make of this specific comparison to say, well, I wrapped it up, or about to wrap it up, in 32 days? Why do you think Donald Trump made this address to the nation at this juncture?
Well, Pooja, the context of all of these wars is that he needs to define victory. Very clearly, this is a war that they've entered without, anticipating the Iranian resistance.
Yes.
And Iran has been preparing for this war for 23 years. Ever since Saddam Hussein, Iraq was invaded, Saddam Hussein was dethroned, 2003, Iran has been preparing for this war for 23 years. Now, they have figured out one thing, that for the United States to declare comprehensive victory, they need to invade Iran physically. Now, short of that, there is not going to be any decisive victory. They need to create that image of Saddam Hussein's statue falling, that very iconic moment where the US invaded, captured Baghdad, dethroned Saddam Hussein's regime, and that picture of the statue falling, right? There is not going to be that photograph without boots on the ground in Iran. They have not managed to get the Iranian regime to surrender to a purely air-driven campaign. They've been bombing Iran for the last 32 days, both the United States and Israel. These are the two of the most powerful air forces in the world. Iran has not capitulated. Their command and control is intact. This is something that I've been saying from day one of this conflict. Do not go by the numbers of the missiles that they fired or the number of targets that have been hit. The Iranian command and control is intact. The United States and Israel have not managed to destroy that. Now, for an inferior country like Iran, faced with the biggest military the world has ever known, all Iran has to do is to survive. And they've done that for 32 days. The United States is out of options now, which is why you see Trump asking for more time to do something spectacular that will get him that decisive image, that defining victory moment, whether it is that statue of Saddam Hussein falling or the Marines planting the flag on Iwo Jima in 1945, or the surrender of the Japanese Empire in Tokyo Bay in 1945, 15th of August. Those kind of images is what Trump is chasing right now, because his MAGA base, the whole of the United States, they consume social media. The United States does not have one single decisive image from this conflict which they can put out to say, mission accomplished. So that is essentially what Trump is chasing in this war. He needs that defining moment. And the big takeaway for me from today's speech, Pooja, is the fact that there is not going to be an operation to seize the islands in the Persian Gulf. That was on the agenda.
Interesting, yes.
Because Trump has said clearly, I don't care about the Strait of Hormuz. We don't import any oil from it. The countries that do, they can do whatever they want. But he's asked for time to finish the job he started. Now,
Are you referring to the Kharg Island, the Larak Island, the
yes.
Keshman, all of these?
Larak, Hormuz, the 30 islands are in the Strait of Hormuz. The contingency was that the United States would seize the islands and get Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, right? That doesn't seem to be a priority going from Donald Trump's speech. What he is saying is that Iran poses a missile and a nuclear weapons threat to the world, to the United States in particular, and he is going to finish the job that he started. That can only mean that they are going to go into the heartland of Iran to try and either capture their missile program, a substantial, or destroy it, or, as people are saying, to get that highly enriched uranium that Iran has buried somewhere under the ground at one of the sites, possibly Fordo.
And can that happen, Sandeep, without boots on the ground invading into Iran? That's a big question. Yes, finish your point, Sandeep, then we'll play out the rest.
If you see over the last couple of hours, in fact, the pieces that the US has been assembling, bringing into theater, point to a massive ground attack of some kind. The A-10 Warthogs, it's the most powerful close air support in the world. Those kind of aircraft point to a very serious ground operation that the US is planning.
And if that ground operation begins at all, can it then wrap up in 2 weeks as much? Because then Iran says and has warned already, if that happens, there will be fire on the American troops.
Possibly.
Yes, Sandeep, stay on with me, because I want the viewer to listen in to the big breaking that's coming in, how US War Secretary hinting at an escalation of war. What is happening really? On one hand, Donald Trump says, just give us 2 more weeks, 2 to 3, and we'll finish the job. But War Secretary Pete Hegseth is saying, back to Stone Age, referring to Iran. Hegseth reiterating that Donald Trump's back to Stone Age jibe. Donald Trump mentioned it during this address of the nation that we have pushed them to Stone Age, whatever that means really. But now Hegseth reiterating that it has happened. But that's not job done. There is something more that needs to be done. Our guests continue to be with us. First, let's listen in to what Donald Trump said about the Stone Age jibe.
Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong.
I really haven't heard another US president refer to Iran or any other nation that they have been thrown back to the Stone Age. So strong words there, but the war is coming to an end. I want to bring in our colleagues here, and especially Daniel, I want to understand from you, because you've been tracking conflict for so many years, when Donald Trump, an American president, says, we will finish the job. Let's cut to the chase. What does that mean? The nuke facilities are still there. Khamenei regime technically is still there. As Sandeep Unithan, our colleague, mentioned that the command and control is still standing. What does finishing the job really means?
Well, I think one of the main problems for the United States here is that Trump doesn't know what finishing the job really means. His administration seems to have offered a number of different definitions for what finishing the job could entail. At times they've said it's regime change, and now they're claiming they've got regime change, but the Islamic Republic is, still intact. As you said, Khamenei's son has succeeded Khamenei as supreme leader, so there hasn't been regime change. At other points in time, they've said it's simply reopening the Strait of Hormuz.
Correct.
But they have no clear plan for doing that. I mean, Trump even said that it would naturally open. They've said that it's making sure Iran can no longer develop a nuclear weapon, or that it can no longer support its partners and proxies throughout the region. There's no evidence that they appear to have made it so that Iran permanently cannot develop a nuclear weapon. They have degraded its nuclear program. And then they've backed off that claim as well. So that's why it's so difficult to look at this speech and really come away from it with any clearer sense of what Trump is going to do next than we had going in, because the same strategic lack of clarity is affecting the United States now as it was before. It's totally unclear what finishing the job means.
Daniel, can we quickly compare this to the previous presidents, whether it was George Bush or even Barack Obama and others who've been in some way involved with the war? How have their statements been, and compare that to Donald Trump today?
Sure. So yeah, to take one example, let's look at the war in Iraq, which obviously did not end well for the United States and also suffered from various degrees of ambiguity and different forms of mission creep. And again, another instance.
All right, Daniel, I'll return to you in just a short while. We have a big news coming in. Australia battling Trump's speech aftermath. There's a complete overturn, ladies and gentlemen. There's been a direct impact across the world on the markets already. Stock markets in Australia, Japan have taken a heavy beating. Understand that this address to the nation, to the USA, has a consequence or a repercussion, tremors in rest of the world as well, especially the markets to begin with. And of course, depending on how far will this war go, the impact on the ground. Australia-Japan stock market down by 1.5% right after the speech concluded. And especially in the Asian markets, it's gone in deep red. Even Australia announcing a fuel tax cut to shield the consumers. Remember, India has taken some measures as well, precautionary and otherwise, vis-a-vis fuel. But now Australia also responding. The stock markets in Australia have taken a heavy beating after the Asian markets. For example, in Tokyo, the stock markets are down by 1.5% after the speech. And we'll try and understand this more. But Australia immediately announcing a fuel tax cut to shield the consumers. Australian Prime Minister Albanese has announced this fuel tax cut right after the speech. This is the concern and fear in today's globalized environment. It's not that if a country is not involved in the war, that there will be no impact at all. As you can see, onto the markets, onto the supply chain, especially because of the Strait of Hormuz, that has been very clear. But Donald Trump now does not appear to be really focusing on the Strait of Hormuz. Sandeep, Unithan, Daniel, and all other colleagues continue to be with us. Chris Osborne as well. I request you, gentlemen, to please stay on. I have to take a short commercial break, but when we return, key takeaways from Donald Trump's speech and its impact on the rest of the world. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Character, the taste of success.
बुलंदियों के आगे आसमान और भी है, दिल में ख्वाहिशों के फरमान और भी है। जीत ली है दुनिया, पर कुछ और अब भी बाकी है। जब दिल में हो आगे बढ़ने का जज्बा, तो रास्तों की क्या जुर्रत जो हमारी उड़ान को रोक सके।
Roll camera and action.
BKT Tires, elevate your drive.
India Today Group, the most awarded network at Ramnath Goenka Awards. Only network to win awards in investigative journalism across print, digital and broadcast. 3 awards, 3 reporters. The winners in civic journalism, print, digital are Shreya Chatterjee and Arvind Oja. The winner in investigative reporting broadcast is Shreya Chatterjee, India Today TV. And in investigative reporting, print, digital, aajtak.in. India Today Group, setting the gold standard in journalism. Always.
iconic.
At a time when questions are being raised on shortcuts used by many to get to what they believe is the optimum weight for them, shortcuts involving use of medicines to lose weight, often unprescribed. Here is the story of a man who has managed successful remission of diabetes and has also kept his hypertension and his cancer at bay with sheer dedication and faith on improving lifestyle. Nitin Chandra, a 60-year-old IT professional, is a living testimony of how nature works like medicine and that improving your lifestyle can help you get to your health goals. On paper, diabetes is a lifelong disease, but for many, it does not have to be like that. From fat to fit, from diabetic to healthy, from sedentary to active, from mood swings to a state of happiness. No shortcuts, no overnight fixes. Just small changes done daily, powerful enough to rewrite a diagnosis. A reminder that while diabetes may be chronic, for some, remission is within reach with the right support and sustained efforts.
Co-powered by Air India Premium Economy. Co-powered by the Tyron Airline.
LIC हर पल आपके साथ. अपोलो टायर्स हर सफर में दम है.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The First Up. I'm Pooja Shali, and first up is going to be Donald Trump's latest statement just about a short while ago and all the key takeaways from that. First, the headlines. Let's begin. American President Donald Trump hints total war, total dominance. Final phase of Operation Epic Fury is loading. Donald Trump says Iran is broken, decimated, and the war is coming to an end in the next few weeks.
We are systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America or project power outside of their borders. Tonight, I'm pleased to say that these core strategic objectives are nearing completion.
Donald Trump's sharp jibe at allies over Hormuz. Trump says we do not need the Hormuz Strait, asserting nations using the strait must take care of it.
The United States imports almost no oil through the Hormuz Strait and won't be taking any in the future. We don't need it. We haven't needed it, and we don't need it.
Donald Trump's speech has an impact on other commodities and markets as well. Brent crude shooting up $6 during Trump's speech, goes from $99.5 to $105 per barrel. Asian markets deep in red after Trump's speech. US gold has fallen 2%, trading at $4,650 an ounce. While Donald Trump was speaking, viewers, all of this was happening in the markets. What about India's prep vis-a-vis the war? Prime Minister Modi chaired a key cabinet meeting, putting the common man first. Government to take steps to control inflation. Prime Minister Modi adds, protecting citizens from the war impact is a priority. Oil rise and stocks fell after Trump's address. barely a few minutes after Donald Trump concluded his address to the nation, there was an immediate impact seen on the stock markets and across the world vis-a-vis commodities. For example, oil rose more than 4% and Asian stocks fell right after Donald Trump said in the first national address since the war started. Immediate impact, even though countries, remember, especially in Asia, that are not directly involved. Now, America says we'll keep hitting Iran very hard, military operations, but will wrap up soon, at least in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So what was the impact like in other markets? Tokyo's Nikkei 2025 was down 1.4% to 53,004.81 in early Asia trading on Thursday. South Korea's Kospi lost 3.4%. This was to Hong Kong to about 5,292. Hong Kong's Hang Seng also fell 0.8% to 25,082 points. America's futures in itself down more than 0.7% in the markets. So if that was falling, Asian markets even going deep in red, which were earlier in green. Oil prices went sharply higher following Trump's remarks. Brent crude, the international standard, jumped 5% to $106 per barrel. The benchmark US crude rising 4.2% to $104.36 a barrel. So look at the kind of fluctuations being witnessed. That's the impact of what an American president can say. Even for nations not involved in the war, there was a reason that the whole world was watching what the US president had to say. It may be an address to the American people, to the armed forces and their families, but the impact of it was felt immediately from South Korea, Japan, to Australia, to other nations as well, to what is the intention of the man on your screens. Just in case you missed, here's the full excerpt of what Donald Trump, the USA president, said vis-a-vis the war. Is it coming to an end? If yes, when and how? Listen in.
Let me begin by congratulating the team at NASA and our brave astronauts on the successful launch of Artemis II. It was quite something. It will be traveling further than any manned rocket has ever flown and will very substantially pass the moon, go around it, and come back home from a distance that has never been done before. It's amazing. They are on the way, and God bless them. These are brave people. We want to God bless those 4 unbelievable astronauts. As we speak this evening, it's been just 1 month since the United States military began Operation Epic Fury, targeting the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, Iran. In these past 4 weeks, our armed forces have delivered swift, decisive, overwhelming victories on the battlefield. Victories like few people have ever seen before. Tonight, Iran's Navy is gone. Their Air Force is in ruins. Their leaders, most of them terrorist regime they led, are now dead. Their command and control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is being decimated as we speak. Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed, and their weapons, factories, and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left. Never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks. Our enemies are losing, and America, as it has been for 5 years under my presidency, is winning, and now winning bigger than ever before. Before discussing this current situation, I also want to thank our troops for the masterful job they did in taking the country of Venezuela in a matter of minutes. That hit was quick, lethal, violent, and respected by everyone all over the world. After rebuilding our military during my first term, we have by far the strongest military anywhere in the world. And now we're working along with Venezuela and are, in a true sense, joint venture partners. We're getting along incredibly well in the production and sale of massive amounts of oil and gas, the second largest reserves on Earth after the United States of America. We're now totally independent of the Middle East, and yet we are there to help. We don't have to be there. We don't need their oil. We don't need anything they have, but we're there to help our allies. Tonight, I want to provide an update on the tremendous progress our warriors have made in Iran and discuss why Operation Epic Fury is necessary for the safety of America and the security of the free world. From the very first day I announced my campaign for president in 2015, I have vowed that I would never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. This fanatical regime has been chanting death to America, death to Israel for 47 years. Their proxies were behind the murder of 241 Americans in the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut, the slaughter of hundreds of our service members with roadside bombs. They were involved in the attack on the USS Cole, and they carried out the countless other heinous acts, including the just horrible, bloody atrocities of October 7th in Israel, something that most people have never seen anything like it. This murderous regime also recently killed 45,000 of their own people who were protesting in Iran. 45,000 dead. For these terrorists to have nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat. The most violent and thuggish regime on earth would be free to carry out their campaigns of terror, coercion, conquest, and mass murder from behind a nuclear shield. I will never let that happen, and neither should any of our past presidents. This situation has been going on for 47 years and should have been handled long before I arrived in office. I did many things during my 2 terms in office to stop the quest for nuclear weapons by Iran first, and perhaps most importantly, I killed General Qasem Soleimani in my first term. He was an evil genius, brilliant person, a horrible human being, however, the father of the roadside bomb, and he lived just horrible what he did. Iran would have been perhaps in far better, stronger position. Had he lived, we would have had probably a different conversation tonight. But you know what? We'd still be winning and winning big. And then very importantly, I terminated Barack Hussein Obama's Iran nuclear deal, a disaster. Obama gave them $1.7 billion in cash, green cash, took it out of banks from Virginia, D.C., and Maryland, all the cash they had. He flew it by airplanes in an attempt to buy their respect and loyalty, but it didn't work. They laughed at our president and went on with their mission to have a nuclear bomb. His Iran deal would have led to a colossal arsenal of massive nuclear weapons for Iran, and they would have had them years ago, and they would have used them. It would have been a different world. There would have been no Middle East and no Israel right now, in my opinion, the opinion of a lot of great experts, had I not terminated that terrible deal. And I was so honored to do it. I was so proud to do it. It was so bad right from the beginning. Essentially, I did what no other president was willing to do. They made mistakes, and I am correcting them. My first preference was always the path of diplomacy, yet the regime continued their relentless quest for nuclear weapons and rejected every attempt at an agreement. For this reason, in June, I ordered a strike on Iran's key nuclear facilities, an Operation Midnight Hammer. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Those beautiful B-2 bombers performed magnificently. We totally obliterated those nuclear sites. The regime then sought to rebuild their nuclear program at a totally different location, making clear they had no intention of abandoning their pursuit of nuclear weapons. They were also rapidly building a vast stockpile of conventional ballistic missiles and would soon have had missiles that could reach the American homeland, Europe, and virtually any other place on Earth. Iran's strategy was so obvious. They wanted to produce as many missiles as possible, and they did, with the longest range possible, and they had some weapons that nobody believed they had. We just learned that out. We took them out. We took them all out so that no one would really dare stop them. and their race for a nuclear bomb, a nuclear weapon like nobody's ever seen before. They were right at the doorstep. For years, everyone has said that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, but in the end, those are just words if you're not willing to take action when the time comes. As I stated in my announcement of Operation Epic Fury, our objectives are very simple and clear. We are systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America or project power outside of their borders. That means eliminating Iran's Navy, which is now absolutely destroyed, hurting their Air Force and their missile program at levels never seen before, and annihilating their defense industrial base. We've done all of it. Their Navy is gone, their Air Force is gone, their missiles are just about used up or beaten. Taken together, these actions will cripple Iran military, crush their ability to support terrorist proxies, and deny them the ability to build a nuclear bomb. Our armed forces have been extraordinary. There's never been anything like it militarily. Everyone is talking about it, and tonight I'm pleased to say that these core strategic objectives are nearing completion. As we celebrate this progress, we think especially of the 13 American warriors who have laid down their lives in this fight to prevent our children from ever having to face a nuclear Iran. Twice this past month, I've traveled to Dover Air Force Base, and it's been something. I wanted to be with those heroes as they return to American soil, and I was with them and their families, their parents, their wives, their husbands. We salute them, and now we must honor them by completing the mission for which they gave their lives. And every single one of the people, their loved ones said, "Please, sir, please finish the job," every one of them. And we are going to finish the job, and we're going to finish it very fast. We're getting very close. I want to thank our allies in the Middle East, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. They've been great, and we will not let them get hurt or fail in any way, shape, or form. Many Americans have been concerned to see the recent rise in gasoline prices here at home. This short-term increase has been entirely the result of the Iranian regime launching deranged terror attacks against commercial oil tankers in neighboring countries that have nothing to do with the conflict. This is yet more proof that Iran can never be trusted with nuclear weapons. They will use them, and they will use them quickly. It would lead to decades of extortion, economic pain, and instability worse than we can ever imagine. The United States has never been better prepared economically to confront this threat. You all know that. We built the strongest economy in history. We're going through it right now, the strongest in history. In 1 year, we've taken a dead and crippled country. I hate to say that, but we were a dead and crippled country after the last administration and made it the hottest country anywhere in the world by far, with no inflation, record-setting investments coming into the United States, over $18 trillion, and the highest market ever, with 53 all-time record highs in just 1 year. It all positioned us to get rid of a cancer that has long simmered. It's known as the nuclear Iran, and they didn't know what was coming. They've never imagined it. Remember, because of our drill baby drill program, America has plenty of gas. We have so much gas. Under my leadership, we are #1 producer of oil and gas on the planet, without even discussing the millions of barrels that we're getting from Venezuela. Because of the Trump administration's policies, we produce more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. Think of that, Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. And that number will soon be substantially higher than that. There's no country like us anywhere in the world, and we're in great shape for the future. The United States imports almost no oil through the Hormuz Strait, and won't be taking any in the future. We don't need it. We haven't needed it, and we don't need it. We've beaten and completely decimated Iran. They are decimated. both militarily and economically and in every other way. And the countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They must cherish it. They must grab it and cherish it. They can do it easily. We will be helpful, but they should take the lead in protecting the oil that they so desperately depend on. So to those countries that can't get fuel, many of which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, we had to do it ourselves. I have a suggestion. Number one, buy oil from the United States of America. We have plenty. We have so much. And number two, build up some delayed courage. Should have done it before. Should have done it with us, as we asked. Go to the Strait and just take it, protect it, use it for yourselves. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done, so it should be easy. And in any event, when this conflict is over, the Strait will open up naturally. It'll just open up naturally. They're going to want to be able to sell oil because that's all they have to try and rebuild. It will resume the flowing, and the gas prices will rapidly come back down. Stock prices will rapidly go back up. They haven't come down very much, frankly. They came down a little bit, but they've had some very good days over the last couple of days. We've done actually much better than I thought, but we had to take that little journey to Iran to get rid of this horrible threat. With our historic tax cuts, where people are just now talking about receiving larger refunds than they ever thought possible, they are getting so much more money than they thought. That's from the great, big, beautiful bill. Our economy is strong and improving by the day, and it will soon be roaring back like never before. It will top the levels that it was a month ago. I've made clear from the beginning of Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. Yet if during this period of time no deal is made, we have our eyes on key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. We have not hit their oil, even though that's the easiest target of all, because it would not give them even a small chance of survival or rebuilding. But we could hit it, and it would be gone, and there's not a thing they could do about it. They have no anti-aircraft equipment. Their radar is 100% annihilated. We are unstoppable as a military force. The nuclear sites that we obliterated with the B-2 bombers have been hit so hard that it would take months to get near the nuclear dust, and we have it under intense satellite surveillance and control. If we see them make a move, even a move for it, we'll hit them with missiles very hard again. We have all the cards, they have none. It's very important that we keep this conflict in perspective. American involvement in World War I lasted 1 year, 7 months, and 5 days. World War II lasted for 3 years, 8 months, and 25 days. The Korean War lasted for 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days. The Vietnam War lasted for 19 years, 5 months, and 29 days. Iraq went on for 8 years, 8 months, and 28 days. We are in this military operation, so powerful, so brilliant, against one of the most powerful countries for 32 days. And the country has been eviscerated and essentially is really no longer a threat. They were the bully of the Middle East, but they're the bully no longer. This is a true investment in your children and your grandchildren's future. The whole world is watching, and they can't leave the power, strength, and brilliance. They just can't believe what they're seeing. They leave it to your imagination, but they can't believe what they're seeing, the brilliance of the United States military. Tonight, every American can look forward to a day when we are finally free from the wickedness of Iranian aggression and the specter of nuclear blackmail. Because of the actions we have taken, we are on the cusp of ending Iran's sinister threat to America and the world. And I'll tell you, the world is watching. And when we do, when it's all over, the United States will be safer, stronger, more prosperous, and greater than it has ever been before. May God bless the men and women of the United States Armed Forces, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much, and good night.
Character, the taste of success.
Like I said before, we better own the sins. Like I said before, we better own the sins.
बुलंदियों के आगे आसमान और भी है, दिल में ख्वाहिशों के फरमान और भी है। जीत ली है दुनिया, पर कुछ और अब भी बाकी है। जब दिल में हो आगे बढ़ने का जज्बा, तो रास्तों की क्या जुर्रत जो हमारी उड़ान को रोक सके।
Roll camera and action.
BKT Tires, elevate your drive.
This town has completely devastated now. All the logistics what were here get evacuated from this place, including the petrol pumps, gas stations. Everything has been bombed during last 2 days. Ashraf Ani for India Today in Nabatia, South Lebanon.
Donald Trump controls Mr. Modi. Mr. Modi controls the Chief Minister of Kerala. I want to ask you a simple question. In every single speech, Narendra Modi talks about religion, talks about temples, talks about Hinduism. He sells himself as a protector of Hinduism. The LDF government, LDF leaders stole gold from Sabrimala. How come the protector of Hinduism comes to Kerala and does not say this? How come Narendra Modi did not say the LDF has stolen from the Sabrimala temple, from Ayyappa? Because Narendra Modi wants a LDF government in Kerala. Everybody knows anybody who stands up against Narendra Modi is attacked.
എല്ലാവർക്കും അറിയാം നരേന്ദ്ര മോദിക്കെതിരെ ആര് നിൽക്കുന്നു അവരെല്ലാം ആക്രമിക്കപ്പെടുന്നു എന്ന് എല്ലാവർക്കും അറിയാം.
Why is the Chief Minister of Kerala not being attacked?
എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് കേരളത്തിന്റെ മുഖ്യമന്ത്രിക്കെതിരെ
Why has he been not interrogated?
എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് അദ്ദേഹത്തെ ചോദ്യം ചെയ്യാത്തത്?
Why are there no cases against him?
എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് അദ്ദേഹത്തിനെതിരെ ഒരു കേസുകളും ഇല്ലാത്തത്?
Why are his children not questioned?
എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ മക്കൾ ചോദ്യം ചെയ്യാത്തത്?
Because they are partners.
എന്തുകൊണ്ടെന്നാൽ അവർ പങ്കാളികളാണ്, അവർ കൂട്ടുകച്ചവടം നടത്തുന്നവരാണ്.
You ask any LDF worker And he will tell you that the LDF is not a left government. It is a corporate government. It is a Adani government. It is a Ambani government. And the BJP knows that the left can never challenge them in India.
The reactions have started to pour in now from the United States of America. Democrats, a former counter-terror chief, slamming the US president. Joe Kent says, and I quote him here first, "We do not honor our fallen by getting more of our best men and women killed in the Middle East. We honor our fallen by learning from our past and only shedding American blood in defense of our nation. The best time to get out of a war of choice is now." Let's listen into what is being said now, why the Democrats are criticizing Donald Trump's primetime address to the American people on the war is because they're calling this incoherent to the words chosen by Donald Trump, and that he's doing little to answer the most basic questions that American people are asking. Two Democratic lawmakers have released statements. Senator Mark Warner also noting that Trump owed Americans more answers about a conflict that has driven up price on gas alongside diesel, fuel and other essentials, and that this war will ripple through the economy for a long time. Meanwhile, Senator Chris Murphy has also released a statement that said speech was grounded in reality that only exists in Donald Trump's mind. So sarcastic jibe here, stating the speech was grounded in a reality, but the reality that only exists in Donald Trump's mind. So there have been strong reactions that have come in from the Democrats that no one in America, after listening to that speech, knows whether we are escalating or de-escalating. So again, a mixed messaging issue that has come in from Donald Trump's address being picked on by the opponents. Joining me, senior journalist Sandeep Unithan for the latest on that. Let's take it one by one, Sandeep. When a former US counter-terror chief, Joe Kent, adds that how are you honoring the fallen by pushing more of our people into this war? Do you think that could be an assessment largely among the armed forces and their families? Because it reminds many of us about Afghanistan, Iraq, and was this conflict at this point so necessary?
Well, absolutely, Pooja. You know, the fact is that the one thing that terrifies the United States is body bags. You know, American soldiers dying overseas in unending wars. There have been over 5,000 servicemen who have died in wars in Afghanistan and Iraq this century. The Afghanistan deployment, lasted 2 decades. Iraq was from 2003 to 2011. That's almost 2 decades. So they've spent over $4-5 trillion in these 2 wars. Thousands of servicemen have died. Many more thousands have been injured. Trump came to office with the promise that he would be the first American president not to start any new wars. And for a while he was. But now you're looking at him, literally walking slow motion into yet another unwinnable war. He started this war thinking there would be a quick in and a quick out. It would be just a quick aerial bombing campaign, and before you know it, it would be like Venezuela. However, that didn't happen. And as the Iranian regime held out, the US intensified its campaign. It used all manner of coercion, threatening the destruction of Iran's oil infrastructure as well. When that didn't work out, they looked at other contingencies. They tried to reframe their definition of a victory, because clearly you cannot win decisively unless you invade a country, physically defeat the army in battle, and then capture territory of the kind that has been done very questionably, I must add, in Iraq in 2003. Without doing that, you cannot declare victory. So Trump right now is in search of victory, that elusive image that I alluded to, whether it is a falling statue or some thing of the US military planting an American flag on some objective, acquiring weapons of mass destruction, digging it out of the ground, destroying a major facility and saying that, yes, we did it, now it is mission accomplished and we exit. So it is this confusion in the US establishment that is now playing out.
You agree to what the Democrats senators are saying? I understand it's political opposition, but when they add, there is mixed messaging. We don't not know if it's escalation or de-escalation. Did you also get that sense from Donald Trump's address?
Absolutely.
Why?
It was because he has asked for more time. He says, give me more time. I need to finish the job. And that would mean that he would have to commit either troops on the ground or, mount another series of bombing missions where he can, destroy Iranian missile making or nuclear enrichment capacity, and then pronounce that we have accomplished our mission. Now we exit. He wants that honorable off-ramp, that honorable exit. So he's not found it so far. That's why he's asking for more time. And that is where there's an expression in the US called mission creep. When you enter one military objective, you enter a conflict with one set of objectives, and then as you enter the fighting, that mission keeps changing. And that is what we're seeing in Iran over the last 32 days. The US has been in some kind of mission creep. It started with a thing of, dethroning the regime, decapitating the regime, where Democrats told the president, take the win and exit. You've changed the regime. You've assassinated Ayatollah Khamenei. There is a new regime in place. Now exit. But he continued. And now you're looking at him saying that, look, well, there's a new regime, but then Iran continues to threaten us. So the selection and maintenance of aim, the basic principles of any military action, are not being followed in this case. And what you see is the US getting into, one mission after the other, literally changing its mission, mid-course, updating it, correcting it.
I do have other questions as well as we move on in the bulletin. But what I'm trying to understand is Donald Trump maintains what Iran has done, that there are no victims. They're accused of serious human rights violations, extremism in the region. They have sponsored these proxy groups like Hezbollah, Houthis, and etc. And yet, US is not able to convince the world, or at least its own people, why they went to war.
Exactly, Pooja. The fact is that they did not make this. See, every US regime makes a very, very big pitch. They do a build-up before they go into a military operation. They build up on the information warfare narrative. They build a narrative, a very strong narrative. They build a coalition of allies, exactly like they've done in 2003. They said that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction in 2003. Of course, it's been 23 years, no weapons of mass destruction have ever been found. Saddam Hussein's regime is gone. But the fact remains that the US went into this war in thinking it was going to be a quick in and a quick out, a shock and awe moment. They haven't got that, mission accomplished thing yet. So, which is why they're having to, kind of reinvent their mission, look for new, battles to declare victory over. And now it is all boiled down to this, that Iran has weapons of mass destruction. It has missile capability. It has the capacity to build a nuclear weapon. And we have to, decisively destroy that capacity before we can say that this war is over. So that is how Trump is framing.
So whether it's his communication or the words chosen, what's going wrong primarily when it comes to having people be convinced of his decision to go to war. Stay on with me, Sandeep, because what I found very interesting in that address, which lasted about 22 minutes, Donald Trump invoked past wars, and not just vis-a-vis US administration, but even world wars, and that to signal his strength. How did he go about it? America's involvement in the World War I stretched 19 months. Then Donald Trump mentioned about World War II, that demanded about 44 months. The Korean War also was mentioned by the US president, that ran for about 37 months. Then came the Vietnam War, one of the most criticized in terms of was it really needed, the impact of it, dragged on for 233 months. And then came the one more recent in public memory, Iraq War, extended to up to 105 months. To that he said, look at my administration, it's just been 32 days and our objective almost there, almost achieved, stay with us. These timelines are primarily an attempt by Donald Trump, the US president, to say the conflict will be coming to an end, but look how much we achieved within a month.
American involvement in World War I lasted 1 year, 7 months, and 5 days. World War II lasted for 3 years, 8 months, and 25 days. The Korean War lasted for 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days. The Vietnam War lasted for 19 years, 5 months, and 29 days. Iraq went on for 8 years, 8 months, and 28 days. We are in this military operation, so powerful, so brilliant, against one of the most powerful countries for 32 days. And the country has been eviscerated and essentially is really no longer a threat. Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong.
I want to take that to Sandeep or Nitin. Sandeep, that what really caught my attention when he gave these timelines of these wars. And technically, this is the war, this conflict has been unlike any other war that even the USA has gone for. The tech advancements, the missile strikes, or the usage of AI and more than ground troops. It differentiates rest of the wars. But then why do you think Donald Trump thought it would be a good idea to give the timelines of those wars, even World War I and II, and then say, look how well I have done?
Well, yes, Pooja, the fact is that these are wars, he's invoked wars of a century ago, right?
Yes.
When we were not even in the digital age. And that's a little bizarre to say that, to compare an operation today, 100 years later, with a war that took place 100 years back. Now, you have seen stalemates in Russia and Ukraine, which actually mirror the First World War. But for the United States to say that is a little strange. The most powerful country in the world, the most powerful military in the world, and possibly the single most powerful individual on the planet, saying that, look, I need more time to finish this. He is fighting against an inferior country that has been under all manner of global sanctions for 47 years and has managed to stand up to him. And that is something that the US hasn't been able to countenance. The fact that Iran has put up this kind of resistance that was completely unexpected. And that is the thing with when you're looking at a military power as powerful as the United States, they have to win decisively. They have to completely defeat the adversary. But for a country like Iran, which nothing much is really expected out of them, they just have to survive. And for them, victory for Iran would be just survival. Whatever it be, he may bomb it into the Stone Age, but if the regime survives, then for them, that is victory. So it's all about how, nations define their notions of victory.
Trump looked like he has achieved a great deal in 30 days. Do you think that was his agenda to say?
So he has actually been reeling out facts and figures and statistics, as CENTCOM has been putting out, that we've hit 13,500 targets, we've flown 16,000 combat missions. All these numbers, at the end of the day, they're just numbers. Is Iran defeated? No. Has Iran surrendered? No. Have they said we want peace? No. Have they asked for a ceasefire? No. Look at what happened to Pakistan, Pooja. I mean, give you a small example. After Op Sindoor, 88 hours later, on the morning of the 10th of May, the Pakistan military asked for a ceasefire because they had been hit so badly in just about half an hour by the Indian Air Force. All their frontline bases had been hit and they knew what was coming. You had the Indian Navy just standing off the coast of Karachi. The Indian Navy chief said so just yesterday, saying that we were ready to strike at Pakistan, at Karachi with all our missiles. We were all set to go when they asked for a ceasefire. See, that is how you tell when a country is defeated, when they said they hold, they throw up their hands and say, we had enough. The match is called off. That's what happened to Pakistan. It's been 32 days. Iran has seen some of the most intense bombing of the 21st century by two of the most powerful air forces in the world, Israel and the United States. They have not surrendered. They have not said, we want a ceasefire, we want peace talks, we want an off-ramp. They're telling the United States, get out of the region. We are holding fast. So this is something that is, which has riled the US and possibly President Trump. Because one thing we know about President Trump is that he doesn't like to look weak. And that is what the Iranians are making him look like, which is why the rhetoric from the US side is increasing, that the kind of language that's being used, it's appalling. Bomb you back to the Stone Age and all that. I mean, these are, open admissions of war crimes in a sense that, what does the Stone Age mean? That you have a country which does not have electricity.
And when the focus has to be primarily on the regime, if that's your anger against, not the whole country.
You're punishing the entire country, a country of 90 million people. You're punishing the entire country. And we know when that happened last, Pooja. It's just about 80 years ago. It happened with Japan in 1945 when the United States was precisely at the moment it was today that Japan refused to surrender despite losing its entire empire, despite losing its navy, its air force. It stood intact. And that is when the United States made that terrible decision of dropping the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That, in fact, is the only time in history where air war has decisively defeated one other side without putting boots on the ground. And which is why I've been saying since the beginning of this conflict that it is terrifying because the Iranians, we know, will never surrender. And if it comes to that, the US does not have the capability, the capacity to send ground troops of the kind that they sent into Saddam Hussein's Iraq. That's 170.
Or the impact of it, Sandeep. What will happen when ground troops do try and enter into the Iranian territory? Sandeep, stay on with me. As he's been mentioning, remember, it's about the sense of victory, the command and control that continues to be thriving for now for Iran. If Iran is not going to surrender and the USA does not want to back down, where does this war go in the days to come? Sandeep, stay on with me. I have big news coming in. Again, the repercussion, the tremors that we are witnessing of this conflict between 2 to 3 nations on rest of the world. Let's take a look. Has been making one announcement after another, offering $689 million in interest-free loans for key businesses that are facing a threat by the soaring fuel prices. This is a very important step. So what Australia is doing, Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has announced 1 billion Australian dollars, which is about $689 million US-wise, in interest-free loans will be made available to businesses that are involved in fuel, fertilizer, other critical supply chains that are getting affected right now, so that Australian trucks, trains, planes, they can continue to move and the disruptions do not impact people of Australia. This is a very significant move because Australia perhaps realizing the impact of this on the essential supply chain there in the country. We are being told this connects to the truckies, the truck drivers as they're called, freight companies and fuel and fertilizer producers. Albanese has confirmed this to the National Press Club. I quote him here. These firms are not just being affected by the global crisis, they're essential to Australia getting through this crisis as well. Australia, nowhere involved with the conflict, neither is India, many other nations across Asia, but we can see whether in markets or on the ground, the governments are realizing the impact of it. Remember, this is not world war in the sense, if you're not involved, you may not be impacted. It's a globalized environment, everything is interconnected. Sandeep Unithan continues to be with me. Sandeep, would you agree to that perhaps US President is aware of it? He's a businessman after all. He understands how the markets work and the impact of his political decisions on rest of the world's businesses.
Absolutely, Pooja. And at this stage, it is Trump the businessman versus Trump the president. And, the situation that he's got the United States into is a situation that's very difficult to extricate because he's a career...
Sandeep, elaborate on that. The businessman Donald Trump and the politician Donald Trump.
The businessman understands that global markets are tanking precisely because of the war that he got the US into, the US and Israel into, the fact that oil prices have surged 60% in the last 1 month, that countries all over the world are suffering. Something as basic as chips, semiconductor manufacturers suffering because helium flows out of the Persian Gulf. These are second, third, fourth order consequences which the United States clearly did not work in before entering this conflict. So Trump, the businessman, knows they possibly made a mistake, but Trump, the politician, is looking at 3 very, very big, significant events, milestone events in 2026 for which he cannot look weak. And those events are as follows. The first one is the meeting with Xi Jinping, a summit meeting with Xi Jinping between the 14th and 15th of May in Beijing, where he has to look Xi in the eye, the first country since the USSR to be a near peer adversary of the United States. He has to look Xi Jinping in the eye. The second big event is the 4th of July 2026, which is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence of the United States. That's a very big milestone. He can't afford to look weak over there, a country a president who's not won over Iran. And the third and the most important thing for him as a politician in the US are the midterm elections, which go on in October of 2026. The results will be declared on the 3rd of November 2026. These are three events which have a huge bearing on Trump's legacy as a president, and therefore all of these are linked to what happens in Iran right now. So at a point, Trump the businessman and Trump the politician, they kind of merge, and the two hats that he's wearing, he has to look at his cost-benefit analysis and then do the right thing. And here he has chosen to extend this war by another 2 weeks, believing that he will get that victory that will then seal his reputation for this year, that will show him as the American president who did the impossible that president.
And meanwhile, countries like Australia, for example, already bracing for it, doing what they possibly can to ensure that their domestic interests are taken care of. But a reminder of how such conflicts and wars in today's time can impact even nations that are not directly involved. Sandeep, stay on with me. So what we do know now, right now, after Donald Trump's address, is that this is the final phase of the West Asia war, at least from what Donald Trump maintains, the next 2 to 3 weeks. In his first national address, since the time the Middle East region has been plunging into turmoil, it was a passionate defense, so to say, of his decisions, of his administration of the month-long war. President Trump added, US forces will finish the job in Iran soon, insisting core strategic objectives were near completion. But what does finishing the job mean? That he did not elaborate on. Donald Trump also pointed that America already decimated Iran's military capabilities, that their navy, their air force are completely gone, and that Islamic Republic no longer poses a significant threat. Trump also added that he dismantled Iran's regime power to target America, that they had always intended to annihilate Israel and the USA, chanting death to Israel and USA for decades, and therefore this time important, if Middle East or Israel had to survive, this decision was taken. Adding that for 47 years, they have been facing this. Children of America will not face nuke threat anymore, he maintains. So a lot of words that did come out from Donald Trump. Let's listen in precisely why he said this was an important war and a decision had to be taken because Iran had been threatening not just Israel and the USA, but other countries in West Asia.
As we speak this evening, it's been just 1 month since the United States military began Operation Epic Fury, targeting the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, Iran. In these past 4 weeks, our armed forces have delivered swift, decisive, overwhelming victories on the battlefield. Victories like few people have ever seen before. Tonight, Iran's navy is gone. Their air force is in ruins. Their leaders, most of them terrorist regime they led, are now dead. Their command and control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is being decimated as we speak. Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed, and their weapons, factories, and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left. Never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks. My first preference was always the path of diplomacy, yet the regime continued their relentless quest for nuclear weapons and rejected every attempt at an agreement. For this reason, in June, I ordered a strike on Iran's key nuclear facilities, an Operation Midnight Hammer. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Those beautiful B-2 bombers performed magnificently. We totally obliterated those nuclear sites. The regime then sought to rebuild their nuclear program at a totally different location, making clear they had no intention of abandoning their pursuit of nuclear weapons. They were also rapidly building a vast stockpile of conventional ballistic missiles, and would soon have had missiles that could reach the American homeland, Europe, and virtually any other place on earth. Iran's strategy was so obvious. They wanted to produce as many missiles as possible, and they did, with the longest range possible, and they had some weapons that nobody believed they had. We just learned that out. We took them out. We took them all out so that no one would really dare stop them. And their race for a nuclear bomb, a nuclear weapon like nobody's ever seen before. They were right at the doorstep. For years, everyone has said that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, but in the end, those are just words if you're not willing to take action when the time comes. As I stated in my announcement of Operation Epic Fury, our objectives are very simple and clear. We are systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America or project power outside of their borders. That means eliminating Iran's Navy, which is now absolutely destroyed, hurting their Air Force and their missile program at levels never seen before, and annihilating their defense industrial base. We've done all of it. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Their missiles are just about used up or beaten. Taken together, these actions will cripple Iran military, crush their ability to support terrorist proxies, and deny them the ability to build a nuclear bomb. Our armed forces have been extraordinary. There's never been anything like it militarily. Everyone is talking about it, and tonight I'm pleased to say that these core strategic objectives are nearing completion. I've made clear from the beginning of Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. Yet if during this period of time no deal is made, we have our eyes on key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously.
Right, so the world is analyzing right now what really does this mean when he says in the next 2 to 3 weeks the job will be finished. I want to thank Sandeep Nitin for his perspective and expertise. Wrapping up this bulletin for now, but stay tuned. When we return at 9 a.m., we tell you more about Donald Trump's address to the nation, or must I say address to the world, and then later, of course, the Business Today show with Haba Bakaya. After a very short break, stay tuned.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Co-powered by Tata Motors. Commercial vehicles better always.
Panasonic AC, इंडिया का कैप्टन कूल।
Latest news coming in. Israel is targeting the Isfahan with missile attacks that are happening. This is the Isfahan missile facility. Right after Donald Trump's speech, we are hearing of news coming in from the region. A massive explosion reported at Iran's missile hub. On camera, look at this visual on your screen. Black plume of smoke emerging. Eyewitnesses are claiming there has been a strike. This is the IRGC missile site near Isfahan. It's the large secondary blast that's been reported. According to information coming in, these are eyewitness-style videos, mobile footage largely, the aftermath of a strike on a suspected IRGC missile facility. Near Isfahan, there is a place called Baharistan. There, it appears that this strike has taken place, but the footage very clear. Look at that smoke coming in. The flames and fire reflective of the kind of explosion that has happened. This is called a large secondary explosion. It's often indicative, basically, just to let you know the background, if there is ammunition or if there's a missile storage being hit. So if there is an ammunition facility, largely the explosion of a certain kind can look like this. You must have noticed, look at this. These are not the explosions or the plume of smoke that you've witnessed in other explosions that have taken place or the missile strikes that have taken place elsewhere in Iran by Israel or vice versa. The provided coordinates point to an area where military-linked facilities are believed to exist. And we're using these words with caution because the fact is Iran has been extremely secretive about its ammunition depot or the facilities of machines and explosives or ammunition, and therefore from the coordinates that are emerging, believed to exist, there were ammunition facilities around or military-linked facilities of the suspected IRGC. But look at this visual and clearly shows that there's been a massive explosion and that's only spread to the nearby areas. Isfahan, you must have heard in the past few days, in fact, ever since the October 7th massacre that took place in Israel, there has been consistent either attacks or strikes of vis-a-vis Isfahan in Iran. And for now, we are told that this comes days after US also hit Iran's Isfahan. Remember the bunker buster bombs that were again captured on video? Now we are hearing of this strike that has happened, but we'll try and get more details. What exactly is this location? What is the impact of it? This means, and this comes right after Donald Trump adding, give us 2 to 3 weeks. We're almost there finishing the job. What does finishing the job mean? He did not elaborate, but from what it appears is one, with regard to the regime, to which he says not intending to change the regime. Then adding that their facilities have been targeted, that they will not be a threat anymore, that their Navy and Air Force are completely decimated. Near Isfahan, in fact, Baharistan, all of these areas, remember, are critical military hubs. And it is also linked to Iran's nuclear infrastructure. So these sort of strikes that are coming in are signs and hints to where this conflict is approaching, precise coordinates being hit by Israel and the USA. I take you now to Israel because there the strikes also have consequences, even though there's been a very strong defense system that Israel has to protect its people. Look at this. This is an Israeli street, flooded. A missile hit a pipeline. The pipeline burst open. The streets were flooded. We do not hear of casualties right now, but on camera you can see the local residents are rushing after the streets were flooded. This is a neighborhood in central Israel and the aftermath of a recent missile strike. So despite the Iron Dome and the defense systems, there was clearly a missile that has come, most likely of course from Iran or nearby areas, that have been able to hit a certain portion in Israel. But the impact of it primarily on properties right now, it was a pipeline that was hit, and the impact of it, the street flooded. Remember that there have been a barrage of missile strikes that have come in from Israel, from the Hezbollah, from Iran and Hezbollah toward Israel. But Israel has largely been able to protect its citizens via the defense systems and to ensure that the population is largely secure in shelters. But even incidents like these are reflective of how the strikes continue, that there is a constant danger, a constant threat in Israel, central Israel especially, vis-a-vis Iran. So in this visual, we can see that it's a flooded street in Israel. This is central Israel. People are around the areas, but also look at the rescue teams, the kind of fast approach that is being taken by the Israeli administration. So within no time, you can see emergency rescue personnel are on the job. We've heard of several instances in the past as well that if there is any damage or any aftermath at all in Israel via the strikes that have happened, there's an immediate attempt to be able to return to normalcy, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's people, and to ensure that there is a seeming normalcy, a new normal that can be witnessed. Here as well, you can see from what appears to be the healthcare personnel, rescue operations are currently on. We do not have any more details, but a visual of how there has been a pipeline hit and a flooded street in central Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a reminder that the war is definitely still on. Strikes are coming through from Israel toward Iran, from Iran toward Israel, even from Hezbollah in Lebanon toward Israel and vice versa. But possibly because of their Iron Dome, they've been able to protect the infrastructure, assets and properties, while in Iran, there are explosions taking place even in critical military hub neighborhood. And that tells us what precisely is happening in the region. 2 to 3 weeks later, will we see all of this come to an end? Will there be a ceasefire? Will there be a deal? An important question, will there be peace in the region? It was an important morning, Donald Trump's address to the nation in the USA, but on the ground, whether in Iran or Israel, it's the people on the ground bracing with strikes. Stay tuned now because I'm going across to my colleague Abha Bakaya of Business Today Television. All the updates on the markets, and what a day with the markets, Abha, isn't it? Especially after Donald Trump's address. Over to you.
Look, this investment guru tips will double your money. Just claim the offer.
Double your money from any random group. Pay attention. Promising double returns, they'll lure you in tight. Unverified groups will send fake tips overnight, emptying your pockets before you can fight.
Well said, well said, well said.
SEBI and NSE advise, consult only SEBI registered advisors and make payments only to verified accounts or UPI IDs. An investor awareness initiative by SEBI and NSE.
Presented by National Stock Exchange. Co-presented by Canara Bank. Together we can.
Good morning, you're with us here on Business Today. I'm Abha Bakaya. Let's take you through the headlines at this hour. A big thumbs down to Trump's early morning address from the crude oil markets. Brent has shot up $6 a barrel in the 18 minutes the U.S. president spoke. Trump rules out help in Hormuz and threatens to hit Iranian oil targets if needed. Asian markets, which were in the green ahead of Trump's speech, slipped deep into the red. The U.S. president kills optimism on the trading floor. Few believers for this words that the Iran war will be over soon. Maruti warns of price hikes due to the Iran war. India's largest car maker says the conflict has pushed up commodity prices, claims all gains from last year's GST cuts have been wiped out, warns of potential supply disruptions in the future. RBI further tightens the screws on offshore rupee trading. After banks, it's the corporates who've been barred from certain offshore foreign exchange derivative contracts. It's yet another move to rein in the wildly swinging Indian currency. Countdown begins for Elon Musk to launch into the trillionaire orbit. Reports say SpaceX has confidentially filed an application for an IPO. The issue could raise a record $75 billion at a valuation of $1.75 trillion, likely to open in June. Let's first take a look at the currency. The RBI intervening once again. The rupee now opening stronger at 93.53 versus 94.83 to the dollar. That's 130 paise in early trade. But remember, the last intervention only managed to hold on for so long before the rupee crumbled even further to hitting 94.83 this morning, gaining 130 paise at the most recent intervention. We'll have to keep our eye on the currency as it continues to see pressure on the back of all of those geopolitical developments. Oil prices are surging, with Brent rising 5% and trading near $106 a barrel as President Trump vows to hit Iran extremely hard within 2-3 weeks, stoking fresh fears of supply disruptions from the Middle East. The jump comes amid growing tensions over the Strait of Hormuz, a key oil transit route that Iran has blocked. Markets are jittery, with investors reassessing risks to global energy supplies, and Asian equities have slipped in response. Trump has warned the U.S. is ready to act if no deal is reached, with military objectives on track for completion soon. The White House also told allies to secure their own oil supplies at the Strait of Hormuz. Markets are nervous and on edge as tensions rise. Let's listen in to what the president had to say just a short while ago.
I've made clear from the beginning of Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. Yet if during this period of time no deal is made, we have our eyes on key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. The countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They must cherish it. They must grab it and cherish it. They can do it easily. We will be helpful, but they should take the lead in protecting the oil that they so desperately depend on. So to those countries that can't get fuel, many of which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, we had to do it ourselves.
Let me welcome in Shailendra Bhatnagar and Gaurang Shah joining us this morning. Markets, we were discussing earlier this week that possibly we've reached a level where they won't have an extreme reaction to bad news, while we're, of course, seeing crude spiraling. The Nifty right now is down about 300 points. It's still at about 22,383. Gaurang, good morning. How much more of a bad reaction do you feel potentially we can have here, or do you think markets have reached that point where they're factored in a large chunk of this war and its implications?
Thank you so much, Haba, for having me on the show. Good morning to all your viewers, to my good friend Shell, and to you. A small disclosure, because we may go into stock specific, that all recommendations that I'll be sharing with you this morning on your show, Haba, they are part of our fundamental research team recommendations. Our company Geojit or myself, we do not have any kind of personal holding, no financial interest, no conflict of interest. But we give advice to our clients on similar lines. They might have their investment interests. So how many more times President Trump is going to do the flip-flop? Abba, it's beyond anybody's imagination or expectation. And how much of more bloodshed and destruction this guy is going to unleash to the world. And nobody asked him to do this. And now he's telling the world that go and take care of Hormuz if you are using Strait of Hormuz for your energy requirement. I mean, and honestly, when this statement was made about a withdrawal and a de-escalation soon, I took it not with a pinch of salt, but with a fist of salt, because we all know the kind of flip-flop that has happened right from the time of the beginning on the day of 28th of Feb 2026 till date, and possibly for the next 3-4 weeks, in case if things have to cool off. But before that, we might have to see terrible amount of bloodshed and destructions, as it was elaborated by Donald Trump in his speech yesterday. So we are going to open up lower, no doubt. How much low, and in the next 3 to 4 weeks, how much low can we go will all depend upon the news flows as to what amount of bloodshed and destruction has happened, specifically with Strait of Hormuz and the key supply chain in terms of crude oil and natural gas. So we will open up with down pressure. Tomorrow is holiday, Abba, because of Good Friday. We will get back to work tables on Monday morning. And in the next 3 days, that is tomorrow, day after and Sunday, if news flows are not good enough, then I think similar amount of reaction from the markets cannot be ruled out when we get back to trade on Monday morning.
Okay, so clearly it's still an open guess at this point in terms of what the likely impact will be. And we've got more news coming in for you on your screen. Precious metals now sliding amid this bloodbath. Remember, we've normally, of course, see some amount of safe haven buying. But currently, whether it's treasuries that are perhaps liquidating or whether it's markets recalibrating valuations on bad news, but the precious metals are definitely seeing pressure building up. Gold falling right now, and silver plunging 10,500 to 2.3 lakhs per kilo. Remember, the dollar is also continuing to strengthen. A lot of liquidity is rushing there, and gold is now down 2,200 to 1.51 lakh per 10 grams. So quite a steep fall coming in on precious metals this morning. A lot of implications of this war all around and in all kinds of asset classes. This morning we've also got the country's largest car maker and the dominant force in small cars, Maruti Suzuki, saying they might raise prices soon. The company claims that all its gains from the GST cut last year have been nullified by the recent rise in commodity prices, and it may have to soon take the decision on a price hike.
As I shared in my previous conferences also, first was the income tax benefit which was given by the Honorable Finance Minister in the last year finance bill. Up to 11 lakhs, no taxes to be paid. Second was the RBI governor reduced the repo rate by 100 basis point. And third was the GST 2.0. How did they work actually? GST 2.0 helped in reducing the price of the car. The repo rate reduction of 100 basis point helped in reducing the EMI which the customer need to pay. And the finance bill thing helped in ensuring that a customer has adequate down payment which he needs to make to buy the car. So this way the three tailwinds, they are still going on. But yes, there is one headwind there in terms of the commodity prices which have started going up. So that is one area. In fact, it is going to nullify part of the tailwind which are already there.
Okay, just counting down to opening bell now. We've got the RBI intervening on the rupee. We've got crude spiking, precious metals sliding, and definitely some of the rising input costs leading to an anticipation of price hikes all around. Shell, good morning. What is the setup looking like to you on the charts? I can see you're not looking forward to opening bell.
No, I am. Good morning, Gaurang, and hello, Abha. Let's see. I think metals will cool down, so they will provide an opportunity to come back into stocks like Hindalco, Nalco. Plus, there is a strength coming back in the PSU banking setup. So those are the two on the long side. Pharma looks really good. Lupin, in particular Glenmark. So those are the individual stocks. But let's see the first 15 minutes. Remember, early morning, GIFT Nifty was down 500 points. Now we've opened 365 points lower. Let's see how it goes, Abha.
All right. I can hear the kind of dismay in everyone's voice this morning as Trump continues to wreak havoc on equities. Gaurang, when it comes to safe haven buying at this point, are we really limited in choices? Metals are sliding, of course. We've got perhaps some room in pharma. I'm not sure. Where would you look for perhaps somewhere to hide in the markets right now?
So honestly, Abba, there is no place to hide. Let me be very honest, and I might sound a little bit brutal also. But when the markets are going to go down, everything is going to go down, right? And unfortunately, in times like this, as you were mentioning, precious metals are the only place where you need to, fly to safety kind of, or it creates a safety shield around you. But that's also down, and that's primarily because of a lot of liquidation, speculation losses. To repay that, certain countries have offloaded precious metals, as what I've read. So in terms of not as a shield protection, but relatively less negative impact could be seen on pharma, as Shell was mentioning, healthcare, that is hospitals. Certain extent, defense is something that I feel could possibly be a bet that you could look at. Telecom service providers, because they have no correlation whatsoever to the rising energy prices that we are witnessing. So these are some of the sectors which you could possibly look at, not as absolutely no impact, but relatively less impact.
All right, there is absolutely no gainer on the Nifty 50 this morning. It is just a pure screen full of red. The cuts are deep. We've got 3-4% hit on most of your blue chips this morning, and it's 22,258, down close to 2%. The pressure is building, down over 400 points now. It's not looking pretty. I don't think 22,000 also is going to hold as a support at some point. If not today, then possibly next week, given the current scenario and how it's looking. You can see the kind of cuts all around. The PSU banking index is down 3% right now. We've got auto down. The VIX is up 5%. It is just a sea of red on your screen this morning. Further news coming in and on implications of the war as well. Remember, Trump has threatened Iran. The Lal Street is now in panic mode. We were hoping that a lot of the bad news had been priced in, but post his recent tirade on how he's going to be continuously bombing Iran for the next 2 to 3 weeks, Sensex now down 1,200 points in early trade in just the first couple of minutes, and we've got the Nifty sliding over 400 points amid this turmoil. That is the big news for you this morning as the market tumbles on Trump's latest tirade around the Iran war. No stepping back from the war. If anything, he's only escalating, and also, as Gaurang said, has made ridiculous statements such as, governments that source from Hormuz should just go ahead and figure it out for themselves. Some relief coming in, however, for fertilizer companies. The government is intervening where they can back home to try and ensure that they are somewhat salvaging the situation. We saw the massive relief for excise duty taxes. Then we saw intervention on the currency. Now we've got some relief for fertilizer companies. There's a custom waiver for ammonium nitrate and an exemption for several chemicals. This will be effective till the end of June, and this will be a big price relief for the industry as the war continues to rage on. Remember, fertilizers are a huge segment and will face a big brunt of what is happening currently in Iran, both in terms of raw material shortages and input price hikes. And remember, of course, this will be critical in terms of churning out supply for the agricultural industry. So they've right now issued a waiver, which will be a huge relief on the price front for fertilizer companies. And this is effective now for the next 3 months. So this is going to be a big relief for them. And we were in fact speaking to some of the CEOs, whether it be from Coromandel, from Chambal, and a whole host of the fertilizer companies as well. And it is looking like a very, very difficult situation. So this was a dire need. I think, Gaurang, in terms of the government really coming in a timely manner, whether it be on oil prices, on the excise duty, whether it be on this fertilizer custom duty exemption, they are definitely intervening. They are on top of it, as we can see. But I mean, look at the fertilizer companies this morning. They're not reacting to this yet or at all. They're all still down 3%.
While it is good to see government taking proactive steps to intervene in any form of direct, indirect taxes or giving any other kind of relief to sectors which are directly or indirectly getting impacted by the current ongoing geopolitical situation. Let us not forget, Abba, I don't want to be a spoilsport over here, but from $60-$65 a barrel, Brent has gone up to $110, $100, $105, $110 a barrel. And so has NYMEX. Indian rupee has seen the worst fall in its history against the US dollar. Somebody has to, and along with that, government is now cutting, custom duty, import duty, or whatever they can do. Somebody has to pay for all this, right? And it is, how long can we go on with this? So maybe government financials may get impacted because they will be the one who will have to possibly bear the brunt of all these things for some time. And then eventually how the recovery happens and how the government stabilizes the financials for itself is something that we'll have to watch out for. But for now, it is good to see these kind of proactive steps. But remember one thing, somebody has to pay for this.
When the dust settles, yes, it is definitely going to be the math that everyone's going to be focused on. Right now, 450 points down on the index. Shell, 22,000, it doesn't look like it's going to be that difficult to break.
Abha, all these supports, of course, are paper tigers, as Mr. Trump has been talking about NATO in particular. So now let's be very practical and look at the low that we had made on 7th of April 2025, about a year ago. And that low was somewhere like 21,743. 22,200, we are already there. 500 points is what is left. Let us see if sanity returns at that point of time. Only then will you be able to say with some kind of a surety that yes, the bears have had their fill. We are also looking at the 20% correction from an all-time high of 26,343. So if you multiply that by 80,000, it comes somewhere in the vicinity of 21,200, 21,000. Let's see whether that holds or not. But frankly, there is no good news. All I can say is, for all sensible people, if they want to buy this dip, please continue with your sips. I know it takes a brave heart to put in a fresh sip, but those are few and far between.
Right. Gaurang, we did see some of the DI money coming in on Monday, and it looked substantial. So, there was some hard thinking that the institutions at least would be pitching in. But clearly, I'm not sure if that trend is going to continue. How are you reading the sentiment in terms of the institutional buying?
So I'll give a blanket disclosure. My good friend Shell mentioned about continuing SIPs. I am continuing my SIPs, Abba. And if I have lump sum investments, balance enough in my savings bank account, I'll do a lump sum also. But I did not stop my SIPs during this time, during Russia-Ukraine, or during Israel-Hamas, or during the COVID time. So I definitely concur and agree with what my good friend Shell has mentioned, that these are the times where you need to allocate a little bit more of your capital, but please do not stop your SIPs, because these are the times which will create strong portfolios. 20% down and out on Sensex and Nifty, stock specific, sector specific, maybe they would have been down and out a little bit more. Valuations have come down from where we were at 26,300 plus levels to current levels of 22,250. Earnings will be a curtain raiser for the last financial year, fourth quarter, from 9th or 10th of April onwards. Let's hope that there is a little bit of silver lining over there, Abba. And in terms of markets, like I mentioned, it's very difficult to find a bottom in this kind of a place of time also. And it's all totally dependent upon news that flows in from the Middle East and the geopolitical situation. So instead of trying to time the market and trying to find the right price, don't waste your time doing that. Take a step forward, get a little bit of more confidence, get a little bit more risk appetite. And in equity market, you need to have elevated risk appetite, Abha. But these are the times when you can create strong portfolios.
Okay. Well, the Finance Ministry also now giving relief to exporters. Duty relief coming in for SEZ goods sold domestically. Customs duty has also been lowered to 5 to 12.5%. So that's further relief coming in. It's been coming in thick and fast this morning. First the RBI, then we've had relief for fertilizer companies. Now the Finance Ministry coming in with relief to exporters, with duty relief coming in for SEZ goods sold domestically. Custom duty has been lowered to 5 to 12.5%, and this relief is in fact going to be in place till March 31st, 2027. So it's for the entire financial year. This is also really good news coming in for exporters. So the government and regulators are clearly on it. We've got relief pouring in thick and fast for sectors of the economy that are most likely to be impacted. However, as we've been hearing from both Shell and Gaurang, it may do little to mitigate the overall impact on financials. We are going to see those rising input cost pressures being passed on to consumers at some point, whether it be aviation, whether it be auto, and of course, other pressures will continue all around as well. This morning, the rupee somewhat curtailed, but still looking very vulnerable. Crude spiking, precious metals sliding and sliding quite heavily. That's really the summary. Gaurang, Shell, thanks so much for joining us. Markets continue to trade down over 400 points right now on the Nifty. We'll see how the rest of the day pans out as it is a truncated week. Do stay tuned. We'll be back with you on Market Close.
Look, this investment guru tips will double your money. Just claim the offer.
Double your money from any random group. Pay attention. Promising double returns, they'll lure you in tight. Unverified groups will send fake tips overnight, emptying your pockets before you can fight.
Visit! Visit! Visit!
SEBI and NSE advise consult only SEBI registered advisors and make payments only to verified accounts or UPI IDs. An investor awareness initiative by SEBI and NSE.
Presented by National Stock Exchange. Co-presented by Canara Bank. Together we can.
बुलंदियों के आगे आसमान और भी है, दिल में ख्वाहिशों के फरमान और भी है। जीत ली है दुनिया, पर कुछ और अब भी बाकी है। जब दिल में हो आगे बढ़ने का जज्बा, तो रास्तों की क्या जुर्रत जो हमारी उड़ान को रोक सके।
Roll camera and action.
BKT Tires, elevate your drive.
Like I said before, we better own the sins. Like I said before, we better own the sins.
Character, the taste of success.
I am there at the right impact site of that Hezbollah rocket attack. One person died at this very site and 26 people are reportedly injured in this incident. But this is how the Israeli emergency response system works, that they try and remove every impact and they try and clear it as soon as possible. Pranay Upadhyay reporting from Naharia, Israel for India Today.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
The narrative war is getting extremely interesting. Iran now writes to Americans right after Americans had an address to the nation by their President Donald Trump. Now the Iranian president is writing not to his people, but to the American public. This is very interesting. Is the war in your interest? Is what the Iranian president Pezeshkian is asking the American people. It's a letter written to the Americans, and I quote from the letter here. Masoud Pezeshkian asking, Iran has no enmity with people of America. Is this war in your interest? Is this an attempt by Iran to escalate not just the public sentiment against the war on Iran, but against Donald Trump? The Iranian president, in a message to the American people, has written that the Iranians have no enmity with the American citizens. There's always a difference between the people and the governments. Also, Masoud Pezeshkian adding that what Iran has done and continues to do is a reaction. It is self-defense. It is not starting attacks, war and aggression. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Iranian president writing to the American people, an open letter, of course, right after Donald Trump's address.
رئیس جمهور در پیامی به مردم آمریکا نوشت ایرانیان هیچ گونه دشمنی با شهروندان آمریکایی ندارند و همواره میان ملت‌ها و دولت‌ها تمایز قائل شدند. آقای پزشکیان افزود آنچه ایران انجام داده و می‌دهد واکنش و دفاع است، نه آغاز حمله و
And between Iran and the United States of America is Israel that is bracing these attacks from Iran. I want to bring in Pranay Upadhyay from an unknown location in Israel. Pranay, what a day really. Donald Trump sends out an address and then Iranian president writing to the American people. I mean, he could be writing to the Iranian public. He chooses otherwise. What do you think is the strategy here?
I think Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian is paying back to US President Donald Trump in the same coin. You will recall, Pooja, that in January when Tehran was swelling with the protest, and at that time President Donald Trump reacted and he said that we are locked and loaded and ready to go. The help is on its way. And thereafter, we have seen that how President Donald Trump and Trump administration tried to address to the Iranian people, asking them to take on this government, to topple this government and come to street, come out in open. However, that didn't happen. But I think, as you rightly said, that there is a narrative war going on, and it is being played by all the parties. In last 36 hours, we have seen that how Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a long statement, media statement addressed to nation there, and he tried to explain that how 10 big achievements they have got in this conflict of last 30 days. We have heard President Donald Trump also trying to justify his action and military operations, and he said that we have thwarted the threat being posed by Iran, and we are going to achieve the goals we have set for this Operation Epic Fury. But contrary to that, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has also written a 4-page letter. Therein, he also put things in the historical perspective, and in fact, he also recounted that. Initially, Iran and United States never had that kind of animosity. But the very fact, the very action of United States initiated way back in 1953 when they toppled the Mahmoud Mossadegh's government, an elected government, and that was a CIA operation. And in fact, when United States supported Saddam Hussein of Iraq against war in his war against Iran, those were the things which actually divided the opinion, and rather brought differences between Iran and United States. But I think President Masoud Pezeshkian is also trying to deepen the divide and fissure in the American public. We have seen that how U.S. public or U.S. audience is divided on this conflict. Even within the MAGA lot, the Make America Great Again support base of President Donald Trump, they do not want any long-term commitment of United States in any long military operation. People are concerned, especially ahead of the midterm elections. There are concerns in the Republican Party that there will be consequences. There could be a negative impact of this conflict if United States continues this operation, if there are more body bags, or if there are price rise in United States.
This is interesting. Stay on with me, Pranay, because Donald Trump earlier tried to reach out to the Iranian masses saying that you've been for too long been facing the extremism, the human rights violations from the Khamenei regime, and we are here to come as a savior. Now, the Iranian president is writing in return to the Americans asking, is this war really in your interest? Why are you supporting it? Let's listen in to this voice that has come in from Iran.
رئیس جمهور در پیامی به مردم آمریکا نوشت ایرانیان هیچ گونه دشمنی با شهروندان آمریکایی ندارند و همواره میان ملت‌ها و دولت‌ها تمایز قائل شدند. آقای پزشکیان افزود آنچه ایران انجام داده و می‌دهد واکنش و دفاع است، نه آغاز حمله و جنگ و تجاوز. رئیس جمهور یادآور شد آمریکا با کودتای سال 32 مسیر تقابل با ملت ایران را آغاز کرد. آقای پزشکیان افزود بی‌اعتمادی ایرانیان با آمریکا با حمایت از حکومت پیش از انقلاب، پشتیبانی از صدام در جنگ تحمیلی، اعمال طولانی ترین و گسترده ترین تحریم ها و در نهایت اقدامات نظامی مستقیم علیه ایران هر روز عمیق‌تر شده است. رئیس جمهور در این پیام تاکید کرد حمله آمریکا و رژیم صهیونی به زیرساخت‌های ایران نشانه قدرت نیست، بلکه نشانه سردرگمی و ناتوانی در دستیابی به راه حل پایدار است. آقای پزشکیان در ادامه نوشت آیا قتل عام کودکان بیگناه، تخریب مراکز داروسازی برای سرطان و یا زیادگویی مبنی بر بمباران یک ملت و برگرداندن به عصر حجر منفعتی جز تخریب هرچه بیشتر تصویر جهانی آمریکا دارد؟ آیا غیر از این است که آمریکا به عنوان نیروی نیابتی اسرائیل و با تحریک این رژیم پا به این تجاوز گذاشته است؟ آیا غیر از این است که حالا اسرائیل تصمیم گرفته تا آخرین سرباز آمریکایی و آخرین سنت مالیات آمریکایی ها با ایران بجنگد؟ هزینه ها را به ایران، کشورهای منطقه و آمریکا تحمیل کند و خود در حاشیه امن قرار بگیرد؟ و آیا واقعا امروز کشور آمریکا در فهرست اولویت‌های دولت آمریکاست؟
In fact, what caught everyone's attention from Donald Trump's address, apart from, of course, the justification or till when will the war continue, was a reference to past wars, even World War I, World War II, the Iraq War, the Vietnam War, and the timelines, specifically how many years, months, and days did those wars continue, and how he's been able to pull it off in 32 days. He mentioned 19 months about World War I, World War II about 44 months, Korean War about 37 months, Vietnam War dragged on for about 233 months. Even Iraq War was over about 105 months. Trump therefore added how he's been able to wrap it up so fast. Was there an attempt for the American masses to be made convinced about what exactly is the reason that this war has been short and brief, but objectives achieved?
American involvement in World War I lasted 1 year, 7 months, and 5 days. World War II lasted for 3 years, 8 months, and 25 days. The Korean War lasted for 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days. The Vietnam War lasted for 19 years, 5 months, and 29 days. Iraq went on for 8 years, 8 months, and 28 days. We are in this military operation, so powerful, so brilliant, against one of the most powerful countries for 32 days. And the country has been eviscerated and essentially is really no longer a threat. Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong.
So this clearly has been one of those key takeaways, an attention that has come on this statement, the timeline comparison of wars that basically are very different from World War I to 2026 conflict. Of course, a lot has changed in the world. I'm in fact now joined by senior journalist Sandeep Unnithan. Sandeep, you want to speak about that? Why would you compare World War I, World War II and other conflicts that USA has, of course, been part of to a 2026 conflict against Iran? What do you think was the reason that possibly Donald Trump brought that aspect in so specifically to convince the American people of what?
The one thing that terrifies the United States is body bags. American soldiers dying overseas in unending wars. There have been over 5,000 servicemen who have died in wars in Afghanistan and Iraq this century. The Afghanistan deployment, lasted 2 decades. Iraq was from 2003 to 2011. That's almost 2 decades. So they've spent over $4-5 trillion in these 2 wars. Thousands of servicemen have died. Many more thousands have been injured. Trump came to office with the promise that he would be the first American president not to start any new wars. And for a while he was. But now you're looking at him, literally walking slow motion into yet another unwinnable war. He started this war thinking there would be a quick in and a quick out. It would be just a quick aerial bombing campaign, and before you know it, it would be like Venezuela. However, that didn't happen. And as the Iranian regime held out, the US intensified its campaign. It used all manner of coercion, threatening the destruction of Iran's oil infrastructure as well. When that didn't work out, they looked at other contingencies. They tried to reframe their definition of a victory, because clearly you cannot win decisively unless you invade a country, physically defeat the army in battle, and then capture territory of the kind that is being done very questionably, I must add, in Iraq in 2003. Without doing that, you cannot declare victory. So Trump right now is in search of victory, that elusive image that I alluded to, whether it is a falling statue or some thing of the US military planting an American flag on some objective, acquiring weapons of mass destruction, digging it out of the ground, destroying a major facility and saying that, yes, we did it, now it is mission accomplished and we exit. So it is this confusion in the US establishment that is now playing out over the last couple of days.
So because he is possibly wrapping up within a month, is this war way better than the previous wars that went on for many months? And this, remember, hasn't happened right now, with ground invasion still pending, or the deployment that's happening around. Sandeep, thank you very much for your perspective on this. The war in West Asia, however, is primarily right now between Iran and Israel. Despite their very strong defense system, in cities like Tel Aviv and other residential areas are coming under attack. What is happening on the ground? India Today bringing you a direct primary source on the ground in Israel. Pranay Upadhyay, India Today global editor, sent us this report.
Amid all those, proposals, all those diplomatic negotiations, the ground reality of this conflict zone remains that Iran is still being able to hit back at different locations, though the missile batteries, the anti-missile batteries, the Iron Dome system, the interception mechanism is working round the clock in Israel, in Tel Aviv. Currently, I'm in Tel Aviv, and behind me is a location where a building collapsed. We have been told that this is a natural, naturally it fell down, that building, but this would also be an impact of the acoustics as well, because this is a weaker structure, and possibly after the boom sound, because there were large boom sounds in the vicinity, in the area, and everyone thought, even the security forces had to go inside that bunker. And in fact, when we were there, that almost for good 15 minutes, sirens were blaring, alerts were coming on mobile phones, and in fact, there were boom sounds around the entire region. And in fact, you can feel that boom sound, and in fact, the vibrations of that missile interception. So this clearly shows that how the missile interception is happening across Israel, and what we are learning from reports that Iran has sent missiles across Israel, and also they are working in coordination with Hezbollah's in southern part of Israel, and they are working from the northern part of Israel, and in fact with Houthis in southern part of Israel, and there is a coordinated attack. Therefore, there are over 900 missile alerts sounded within a span of few hours. Iran has apparently fired its largest or biggest missile salvo targeting Israel and Tel Aviv. This is 11th time in the city of Tel Aviv. Sirens went off. The sirens are blaring, and in fact, people have rushed to their shelters, and we are hearing these boom sound, these thundering noises in the cloudy sky of Tel Aviv. And let me show you, this is how the sky is looking at right now. It's drizzling, it was raining, but right now the sirens are blaring in the city of Tel Aviv, and this is a market, and this market is empty, though today is a holiday, but still there were people around, and most of the people have gone to the shelters, and I can also hear the jet engines, and apparently there should be some action. I can say for sure that what exactly it is, but this clearly shows that the missile batteries and the air defense system, the anti-missile system is working around the clock in the city of Tel Aviv, and since morning, this is the thundering sound of missiles.
Remember, these are very interesting times. We may be a country that's not directly involved in the war, and many other nations like that, but the impact is still being felt across the world. And those tremors, for example, are on the Brent crude, surging sharply, rising $6 in just 18 minutes during that speech of the US president. Oil climbed more than 4% while Donald Trump was speaking. America's futures were down more than 0.7%. Even Asian markets, where nations are not directly involved in the war, slipped into the red. They were earlier in green. The market slipped into the red, with Tokyo, Seoul and Hong Kong turning negative after opening in the green. Precious metals already under pressure. American gold has fallen over 2%, trading at $4,650 an ounce, while silver has slipped more than 3% to $72.42 an ounce. Meanwhile, stock markets even in Australia and Japan are taking a heavy beating, both around and down by about 1.5%. Therefore, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has announced a fuel tax cut to shield consumers from rising costs. The Australian government urging citizens to use public transport amid the West Asia conflict. All countries already preparing precautionary measures so that domestic interests are not hampered. Now, President Trump, of course, bothered about the US economy, the world economy as much. But what is the impact really across the world, especially on economy, on oil, fuel, supply chains, vis-a-vis this conflict? Let's listen into this.
The United States has never been better prepared economically to confront this threat. You all know that we built the strongest economy in history. We're going through it right now, the strongest in history. In 1 year, we've taken a dead and crippled country. I hate to say that, but we were a dead and crippled country after the last administration and made it the hottest country anywhere in the world by far, with no inflation, record-setting investments coming into the United States, over $18 trillion, and the highest market ever, with 53 all-time record highs in just 1 year.
So did some clarity come after that much-hyped address to the nation by Donald Trump, or only more mixed messaging, lack of clarity and uncertainty, not just for the USA, Israel, Iran or the neighborhood, but for the rest of the world as well? Stay tuned to India Today. That's a wrap from me. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned. Coming up next, more news.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
At a time when questions are being raised on shortcuts used by many to get to what they believe is the optimum weight for them, shortcuts involving use of medicines to lose weight, often unprescribed. Here is the story of a man who has managed successful remission of diabetes and has also kept his hypertension and his cancer at bay with sheer dedication and faith on improving lifestyle. Nitin Chandra, a 60-year-old IT professional, is a living testimony of how nature works like medicine and that improving your lifestyle can help you get to your health goals. On paper, diabetes is a lifelong disease, but for many, it does not have to be like that. From fat to fit, from diabetic to healthy, from sedentary to active, from mood swings to a state of happiness. No shortcuts, no overnight fixes. Just small changes done daily, powerful enough to rewrite a diagnosis. A reminder that while diabetes may be chronic, for some, remission is within reach with the right support and sustained efforts.
ഒരു കഥ കേൾക്കാൻ കൊതിയുണ്ടോ? കഥയിൽ ആരൊക്കെ ഉണ്ടെന്ന് ചോദിച്ചാൽ ഒരു തെരഞ്ഞെടുപ്പ് കാലമല്ലേ? ഈ കഥയിൽ CM ഉണ്ട്, മാഷുണ്ട്, ടീച്ചറുണ്ട്, പിന്നെ വേറെ കുറച്ച് സഖാക്കളും.
വെരി ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റിംഗ്.
ഈ കഥയിൽ ഒരു പുതുയുഗം ആഗ്രഹിക്കുന്ന നേതാക്കളുമുണ്ട്. പിന്നെ വികസിത കേരളം സ്വപ്നം കാണുന്ന പാർട്ടിയും അവരുടെ നേതാക്കളും.
Paint BJP is anti-Kerala. I want to break the bad news to them. It's not working.
ഇവർ എല്ലാവരും പണ്ട് ലാലേട്ടൻ ഒരു സിനിമയിൽ പറഞ്ഞതുപോലെ ഈ കളി ജയിക്കാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് മാത്രം കളിക്കുന്ന കളിയാണ്. അപ്പോ ഒന്നുകൂടെ ചോദിക്കട്ടെ, ഒരു കഥ കേൾക്കാൻ താല്പര്യമുണ്ടോ?
Presented by
Parul University, Vadodara, Gujarat.
Co-powered by
Panasonic AC, India ka Captain Cool.
Co-powered by the Tyron Airline.
Very good morning, viewers. You're watching India's Agenda on India Today with me, Sriya Kundu, and all eyes are still on that raging war in West Asia. But in this hour's bulletin, we'll also be bringing you all the other stories developing across the world. So let's get right into it, starting with the headlines. Donald Trump hints total war, total dominance. Final phase of Operation Epic Fury loading. Trump says Iran broken, war nearing end.
We are systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America or project power outside of their borders. Tonight, I'm pleased to say that these core strategic objectives are nearing completion.
Trump's sharp jibe at the allies over Hormuz. Trump says we do not need Hormuz Strait. Assad's nations using Hormuz must take care of it.
The United States imports almost no oil through the Hormuz Strait. Won't be taking any in the future. We don't need it. We haven't needed it, and we don't need it.
Brent crude shoots up $6 during Trump's address, goes from $99.5 to $105.3 per barrel. Asian markets, on the other hand, deep in red after Trump's speech. US gold falls 2%, trading at $4,650.23 an ounce. "32 days in, war timeline uncertain. Trump's speech highlights war suspense. Says wars in the past were way longer. Short war or another long one?" No end in sight to West Asia war. Prime Minister Modi chairs a key cabinet meeting. Prime Minister Modi puts common man first. Government to take steps to control inflation. Prime Minister says protect the citizens from war impact. On that note, viewers, we have breaking news right at the top of this bulletin. India scripts historic defense exports. Success, that is. And this is under the inspiring leadership of the Prime Minister. India is scripting an impressive defense export success story. What is it all about? Let's take you through the details. India's defense exports have touched a new all-time high with a record of 38,424 crore rupees in the financial year 2025 to 2026. It's a new financial year that we see beginning, and this is what marks that balance sheet in the defense sector. It marks a robust 62.66% growth over the previous fiscal, wherein this comes in, let us tell you viewers, as a big jump of 14,802 crores rupees in defense exports, reflecting the growing global trust in India's indigenous capabilities and advanced manufacturing strength, with DPSUs contributing 54.84% and private industry as high as 45.16%. This milestone showcases the power of a collaborative and self-reliant defense ecosystem. This is what we are learning of at this point about the defense sector and how the exports from our country to the rest of the world has increased manifolds. Now, Shivani Sharma joins me on the broadcast with more details on this. Shivani, very good morning to you. This comes in as a big news for India and also shows the world the indigenous capabilities of India when we speak of manufacturing arms within the country.
Yeah, see, there was a time when India was importing its arms from many countries, but now it is not only making in India, but also making for the world. And the figures and data, they are showing that how, especially after COVID, India started this Make in India and Atmanirbhar push, especially in defense forces. And there are hundreds of items that are now on the no import list. The latest data also shows how the defense budget has been 100% utilized, and this is a record, Shreya. Not only this, but the defense capital has been now increased by 22%. So this shows that there is a lot of procurement also that's going on. The defense production is touching new limits, and we are not only making for our needs, but also exporting major armaments to many countries.
Right, Shivani. This definitely comes in as a big boost for us, not just in terms of manufacturing for ourselves, but also manufacturing for the world. Shivani, just to take our viewers a little through the numbers that we're looking at and the increase that's come about that we were just projecting on our screens, if you could just take us through those details, please.
See, Shreya, we can see that these exports have increased in multiple times. When we talk about the decade, in 1 decade, it has multiplied, and we can also see these numbers on the charts. When we talk about the defense budget, the capital that has been utilized, it is more than 1.8 lakh crore rupees in one fiscal. And the new defense budget that is 22% higher shows that how defense ministry is going on in the procurements. There are a number of projects in the pipeline when it comes to the Rafale jets, many other UAVs, drones. There are submarine deals that are in the pipeline. So a lot is happening here when it comes to the utilization of the defense budget. And this has happened for the first time in the history that 99.6% of the defense budget has been fully utilized. There were times, Shreya, when this budget was returned back, it was not used.
Right.
But now it is not only being used, but the increase is also there in the capital outlay. That shows that there are procurements that are going on aggressively through the armed forces, be it the Army, Navy, or the Air Force.
Right, Shivani, thank you for detailing that out for us. And on that note, viewers, let's quickly take a look at some other stories now. And on to the biggest story of the day, that is that crucial address that came in from the President of the United States. It is the final phase of the West Asia war, even as Donald Trump made his first national address since the fighting plunged the Middle East into turmoil. In a passionate defense of the month-long war, President Donald Trump said that the US forces will be finishing the job in Iran soon, insisting that core strategic objectives were all nearing completion now. Trump has pointed out that the United States had already decimated Iran's military capabilities and the Islamic Republic no longer poses a significant threat. Trump said that he had dismantled Iran's regime power to target US and that annihilating Iran's defense was the US's main target. Trump has also said that Iran chanted death to America for 47 years and that the children and grandchildren of America will not be facing a nuclear threat from Iran anymore. Trump has also warned in his speech that US will hit Iran's power plants if Iran makes no deal with the United States in the coming days.
As I stated in my announcement of Operation Epic Fury, our objectives are very simple and clear. We are systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America or project power outside of their borders. That means eliminating Iran's navy, which is now absolutely destroyed, hurting their air force and their missile program at levels never seen before, and annihilating their defense industrial base. We've done all of it. Their navy is gone, their air force is gone, their missiles are just about used up or beaten. Taken together, these actions will cripple Iran military, crush their ability to support terrorist proxies, and deny them the ability to build a nuclear bomb. Our armed forces have been extraordinary. There's never been anything like it militarily. Everyone is talking about it, and tonight I'm pleased to say that these core strategic objectives are nearing completion. These core strategic objectives are nearing completion. As we celebrate this progress, we think especially of the 13 American warriors who have laid down their lives in this fight to prevent our children from ever having to face a nuclear Iran. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. We've beaten and completely decimated Iran. They are decimated, both militarily and economically and in every other way. And during this period of time, no deal is made. We have our eyes on key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. We have not hit their oil, even though that's the easiest target of all, because it would not give them even a small chance of survival or rebuilding. But we could hit it, and it would be gone, and there's not a thing they could do about it. They have no anti-aircraft equipment. Their radar is 100% annihilated. We are unstoppable as a military force. Tonight, every American can look forward to a day when we are finally free from the wickedness of Iranian aggression and the specter of nuclear blackmail. Because of the actions we have taken, we are on the cusp of ending Iran's sinister threat to America